Why was Slaver's Bay such a bad place for a vacation?
Because you're seeing a lot of, like, abuse, and you probably wouldn't want to see that on a holiday.
Because you always end up with more chains than souvenirs.
Ha 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 ha.
Yep.
And the breaker of change.
Hello and welcome to day 19 of the Genesis of Androzani Advent Calendar for 2024. We are here to recap and rank Game of Thrones Season 6, which is apparently, according to the mainstream, the best season of the show.
Yeah. Which, oh man, when I was looking through my rankings and what I actually rated every episode, man, I thought I wasn't as harsh as I was, but yeah, I apparently was. Enough where I feel like normies would be very angry with me with my ratings, with a lot of episodes.
Yeah, I was quite gobsmacked to see like where the high watermark was for this season was actually very, very low.
Yeah.
Like for what you'd expect. I've also got my cat here
definitely.
in the background having a little snooze.
I had to throw my cat out of the house because he was biting my leg before we started.
That's not nice.
No, it's not. Not when you need to focus.
No.
And obviously, getting your foot getting constantly bitten by a cat is not very nice.
Yeah. But anyway, so if anyone is clicking on this video and they just haven't seen, we did reactions for the 10 episodes of Season 6. We've also done the whole show up to this point, so you can go check that out if you want. But this is us recapping all of Season 6 in a nutshell. Not a nutshell, it's going to be like 4 hours. 4-hour nutshell. And we will rank the episodes and we'll sort of give our favourites and least favourites for certain aspects like we have done for the previous 5 seasons. But with that said, while I fill up my water bottle and get an ice block, Callum, your initial overview for Season 6 of Game of Thrones.
Well, if you telling me that this season is very highly regarded by a lot of majority of fans as like the absolute peak of Game of Thrones, and having seen a lot of comments on a lot of clips on YouTube on said season being described as that, I think this is probably one of the most overrated seasons of television I've ever seen. It's quite astounding how the level of writing throughout the season is just complete mesh and just like mashed potatoes, but not even the good kind. It's just completely revolting, gooey, like liquid mash. Like a lot of this season, really, the script is just horrid for like the majority of it, if not at the very least 90% of it. There is very few locations and moments where I genuinely feel like the show is actually going in a positive direction and isn't just becoming like a laughing stock of like storytelling. So that's kind of how I feel at the moment when considering Season 6. It's just kind of a mess. Like in every level of storytelling that I practically really enjoy, it just fails miserably, especially in moments where it should be very good. Like the last 2 episodes of the season, they should be like absolutely up there, and in terms of like the reception of them, they are, but in reality they're very disappointing pieces of media that I just don't understand how anyone can think, oh yeah, this is good.
Yeah, I mean,
so that's kind of my initial thoughts.
A lot of my normie friends say Battle of the Bastards is the best episode of Game of Thrones, and then
when it's not even like top 50.
And then even like Savage Books, who is actually a really good critiquer most of the time, says The Winds of Winter is his favourite episode of Game of Thrones. And I'm like, oh no.
I would say that it should be. On paper, in everything that it's meant to do, it should absolutely be, but the script is absolutely horrid. Like, the majority of the script just is not on that level, when it really should be, when it has all the ingredients to do so.
Even, and this one might shock you, even Wolf said that after season 5, season 6 was a comeback. I think
Right.
that's absurd.
Well, did he say that? Does he still think that, or did he say that at the time?
I haven't heard any of his takes on Game of Thrones since 2019.
Right. Okay.
But he thinks that he not only thinks that season 6 is like when they brought it back after
Here's
season
the
5.
thing, right? I feel like even at the time of release, I can possibly see like they're still really bad episodes, so it should not be held as high as it should. But even like, I feel like it's got a lot of stuff that should be leading to things that eventually are paid off to make it, to make it stronger. Unfortunately, the later seasons don't even do that. They don't even make the season stronger. They make it worse. But even like looking at these episodes as their own, there's just like all the fucking Aya stuff throughout the season is just an absolute joke, and I can't take it seriously at all. It's just absolute nonsense, other than like Lady Crane very briefly.
The other part of the fandom that really I'm just so baffled by is the ones that say that season 6 is better than A Feast for Crows and A Dance with Dragons. Like, I'm like, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? It's not even. I don't understand how you could possibly fathom that.
I generally think this is like one of the most
insane.
overrated seasons in TV I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Is it literally because of Battle of the Bastards and Hold the Door? Those are the reasons, along with probably the finale as well, because of how impactful it is.
I guess maybe because it's a very eventful season where a lot of people die and a lot of things happen. And a lot of fan theories sort of come true, I guess.
Like, as was the end of season 3, this is the end of end of season 6 is the end of this era of Game of Thrones. Like, season 4 to 6 is like its own thing, as what like season 1 to 3 was, as I described it when we reviewed it at the time. So I can see, like, I can understand why normies like it. I can't understand anybody who has slightly a critical eye can see that this season is like anything but kind of a mess. I just don't get it.
And actually, I mean, I know this is a bit of a hot take in some areas. It depends on who you are and what where you fit. I know there are some people that agree with me on this, but they're mainly ones that have like scoured the book out like nerds. But I actually think season 5 has more highlights than season 6. I actually think
absolutely it does.
Yeah, I think there's actually there's more of what I recognize in Game of Thrones in season 5, even though, like, obviously season 5 has some terrible flaws. It has some really low points.
Oh yeah, it's not perfect. Not
But the high points, there's actually, like, in episodes like High Sparrow and Kill the Boy and The Gift and Hard Home, there's some genuinely good stretches of TV where there's multiple scenes, where there's good characters, good plot. Like, this has almost none of that. Apart from
season 5 has everything to do with the wall, which is like
and
the strongest part of last season.
The King's Landing stuff in season 5, apart from episode 6 with Littlefinger, that was shit. But everything else in King's Landing that season was great, with like Cersei and the High Sparrow and Tommen and Marjorie. It was amazing. And they did carry on some of that this season with King's Landing, but it's probably not quite as focused. Like, I noticed a lot of the build-up was very inconsequential, even if the actors did a great job. And then, as I said in the last episode review, they kind of nuke it so none of those ends get tied. But like the Wall, for example, is like everything with Jon in this season is completely a downgrade, and then all the other stuff in season 5 that was bad.
The best part of Jon, we'll talk about Jon more in depth later, but the best part of Jon's season for me is when he literally like says to Ramsay, like, "What your men want to fight for you? If they knew, you wouldn't fight for them." Like, I feel like that's the best he's been this entire season, because that is a summary of like the difference between a lot of leaders and Jon. Jon will absolutely fight for his men.
That first moment when he first wakes up from death before he starts having to actually get involved as well. But anyway, like, that's a downgrade, and then all the other storylines are either the same or they are also a downgrade. So I just don't agree with 5 being below 6. I think 5 has more
No,
highlights.
definitely not.
Yeah.
I feel like here's the thing, right? In terms of like scale and like sort of like production, season 6 is a triumph. Like, I don't disagree with that at all. I think it looks beautiful. The music is incredible. The acting is like stellar
that is
throughout.
true. The show does look better this season. Like
The
budget's
script is one of the worst, like, and overrated scripts of a season I've ever had the displeasure of seeing. And that's what I care about. As anybody who knows me and knows like what I talk about, script is like the be-all end-all for me in terms of storytelling. I actually thought about this yesterday when I look at a lot of YouTubers and even just people who just watch stuff. They enjoy filmmaking so much. I enjoy storytelling a lot and script writing and sort of like the meat and potatoes of a narrative. That's what I enjoy the most. If that's on a very poor level, I don't care how good the film looks or TV show looks or how good the acting is. If the script is not up to par, I'm not going to care. Because good acting can come from... There's a lot of shows and there's so much good access to like good actors and music producers and like directors and like... Yeah, all of that. But a good script is just so hard to come by now. And I feel like it's something that's just not being appreciated as much as it should.
A TV show or a film, right? It's like a chicken casserole. It's got 1,000 different ingredients, but if the chicken's raw, it's inedible. And that's kind of how I see
it.
Yeah? Yeah. Now, without all those ingredients, the chicken might taste a bit dry and bland, but if it's cooked, it's still a structure. Whereas if you have a casserole with all those lovely sauces and salt and pepper and all those sides and everything, it's going to be a massively well-prepared dish, but if the chicken's raw, you can't eat it. And that's my kind of point about storytelling is it doesn't matter if Miguel Sapochnik made the Battle of the Bastards in the Winds of Winter look pretty. If the script writing is poor, then it's just inedible as a story.
Yeah, definitely.
It's the difference between being able to look at food and actually being able to eat it. I don't want to just look at the food and admire the way it looks. I want to eat the food and taste it.
How does it taste?
Yeah.
You can present food really well. And it could be
whereas you compare
garbage.
that to like the Blackwater episode, that it looks pretty and it tastes good.
Yeah.
Well, apart from the fact that Stannis doesn't wear a helmet, but that's like the one issue with it.
No, but we got to see his face.
That's
like the very lower end of like modern media wanting to like show the actors' faces and everything. Obviously, it's way more apparent in normie shit, like obviously MCU, Disney, and other popular stuff. They always have to show the actors' faces in the films and the posters, and it's just annoying. Anytime Iron Man's on screen, you got to see his face and not him wearing his helmet.
Yeah, I guess so.
But yeah, that's like the lower end of it.
And that's not a problem in the books because Stannis doesn't actually fight on the field in the books. He stays on the ships and commands. And there's actually more that happens. Like Tyrion has this big chain that stops the ships from exiting. And then the wildfire is even bigger and like more insane. Like it changes the tides. Like there's like massive tsunamis of green fire. It's crazy. Anyway, back to season 6. Shall we talk about some characters?
Sure. This should be really fun.
Ponytail Jon Snow.
Oh, we were literally just talking about him. So, oh man, what an absolute downgrade of a character. Here's the thing, right? I still like Jon. I just feel like bits of him have been taken away. But I still like him. But I just feel like the writing has done him a massive disservice. Would you say it's like season.
Within season 6? Because obviously it's massively helped by the fact that in seasons 1 to 5 he's one of the best characters in the show. So do you think at this point basically it's like he's your brother or your friend and you're just disappointed in him recently and you just feel like he's
I'm
had
disappointed.
A step down.
It's more that I'm disappointed with how he's been treated, I guess you could say. I feel like he's been treated like an absolute buffoon when I know he isn't. I know he's like one of the most noble, honourable fighters in the entire show, and he isn't dumb. He's extremely clever when put to tasks that suit his skill set.
But one bad season of John has not been enough to quite make you dislike him yet.
No, of course not. Because I know there's stuff. I remember clips and lines he has that still make me like him. Even in next season, I know there's lines that he has that I know that I'll like. But what this season has done has unfortunately chipped away at his armor, and we all know what armor is like in Game of Thrones. Later on, it is practically a sheet of paper. Yeah, it's like John this season has mainly been, he's been at just underneath like intolerable in terms of like how the season has used him as a prop. But like I still really like the character because of all the previous 5 seasons. Nothing this season has like ruined him in terms of like his entire ethos as a character. The closest is probably the Sansa scene in the last episode of the season where he doesn't. Because here's the thing, right? I don't need him to like yell at Sansa, but I need him to acknowledge the fact that Sansa could have absolutely saved hundreds of men and Rickon had she just told him what her plan was, but he doesn't, and that's just really annoying because I'm looking at the show, and the show isn't acknowledging the things that have happened, as if like
they don't have a funeral for Rickon Stark.
You don't, yeah, exactly. They don't even have that in the last episode, which they absolutely should, and there should be a discussion of like Sansa, if you brought the army like at the time we needed them, Rickon could still be alive.
The grief of Rickon's death lasts 6 seconds.
And this is like a really good point that I didn't think about at the time, but like I'm thinking about it now. Why doesn't Sansa and Jon trust each other? What is this like? We need to trust each other. You knew each other for years, and there's no reason why you don't trust each other.
I mean, she was mean to Jon when they were kids, but it's not like it was to the level of I won't give you this army that'll get our home back.
Because she was a child.
Yeah.
When you're talking about like war and the potential of death and family, Sansa does not need to be convinced on why she needs to trust Jon. I just find that incredibly idiotic as a plot point.
The fact that she seemingly acts, not necessarily says, but she acts like she trusts Littlefinger more than Jon is absolutely absurd.
Yet she says that she doesn't, and that you're crazy if you do.
I think one of my biggest issues with Jon this season is how the resurrection is handled. I think it's so.
Oh, it doesn't. It's not even a factor by the end of the season. It's not even a factor at the moment.
The whole way it happens is really like just poor and just so weak. And then even when after it happens, the impact of it happening is completely a non-factor. It's really piss.
Non-factor.
Yeah. It's really piss poor how they just don't use this there's basically a gold mine of a plot point and they don't create any drama out of it. It's very sad.
No. It's pathetic.
And
it's really
the fact
pathetic.
that he has no like trauma after the fact that he hung a child and executed Ollie, like that is crazy that he doesn't think about it.
That hasn't even talked about at all since it happened, really, and that's really, really frustrating. Because, like I mentioned in the previous episode, that should be sort of his lingering like doubts throughout the whole season. He not only did he kill like commanders and like important men to the wall who have been there for like ages. He also killed a kid who lost their parents, like, last season. Season 4. And that doesn't play a factor in, like, any of his, like, outlooks on, like, what is his purpose at the moment. All he does is, like, my watch is ended because I died, so that means I can get out of it scot-free. Like, that's obviously not what he means by his intention, but, like, it's so idiotic that it might as well be.
I also really don't like, this is something that kind of happens from this point on in the show, is there's that one great scene in Hardhome where he details to the wildlings why they need numbers against the White Walkers, right? But now, in this season and going forward, it's become this meme where he just goes around saying, "We need allies." And it's just it's very repetitive. And every time he gets like kind of, there's tension around it from other characters like Lyanna Mormont or Robert Glover, he just turns into such a wet flannel of a person. Like he just has no conviction in his voice. This is it's strange because he, you know, you think back to like season 3 when he was negotiating terms with Mance Rayder, for example. Like he had so much more conviction in his voice. He was so much more powerful in the way he would, you know, socially maneuver. But now he's just completely pathetic, and it just pisses me off.
Yeah, it's really frustrating to watch.
Yep. And then, on top of that, let's not forget about the fucking plot armor he has in Battle of the Bastards.
It's actually insane how he doesn't get a single scratch throughout the entire battle.
And like in the, I didn't show you this, but in the post-episode, like behind the scenes, David Benioff says like, oh, the reason why John, like he's obviously a skilled fighter, but basically what happens is it's just he gets really lucky.
Oh, that's why I like in my storytelling. An insane amount of luck. Not even a little bit of luck where it's like understandable, so I get it. It's a lot of luck. It's crazy how much luck there is.
Yeah. And then, of course, there's the fact that he is made king in the North, despite the fact that he's a bastard, and he's also, you know, for everyone else's knowledge, he is sworn as he's sworn vows to the Night's Watch, so he can never take up titles or lands. They never discuss the fact that he was stabbed and killed.
At least I get what you mean. It should at least be brought up. That doesn't frustrate me as much as probably you, but it should be brought up. I definitely agree with that.
I'm not saying Jon Snow can't be the king in the North. I'm just saying it's ridiculous. Saying, It's ridiculous that no one has mentioned that he was, you know, a Night's Watch vows person. Like, it's in the North, that is a very respected honor.
Yeah.
If this was in the South in King's Landing, it wouldn't be as major, but it's in the North. These people really care about your word and your honor.
Yeah, the North is all about honor.
Yeah, although there was one big revelation about Jon Snow in this season, and that is that he is the son of Lyanna Stark. That was
I didn't think about it much at the time, but as a twist, I think it's the best part of this season in terms of what it can mean going forward. And the scene itself, I actually think is probably one of my favorite scenes in the whole season.
Yeah, so as I said, this reveal is based on like the conversation that D&D had with George R. R. Martin about whether or not they are allowed to adapt the books into the show. He's, you know, as I said, it was who is Jon Snow's mother, and they said it was Lyanna Stark, and that is the truth. It is Lyanna Stark. Therefore, George R. R. Martin said, "I trust you with this show." Little did he know what would happen by the end of the show. But for the first,
seriously, as a reveal, it's like I actually find it like so interesting because. Weirdly, the season that I think is the worst somehow doesn't actually ruin Ned Stark's character. It actually enhances it.
Yes.
So that's like, if there's one thing I can say about season 6, it makes Ned Stark a better character.
I actually think, I think the thing about the reveal is I feel like it does more for Ned than it does for Jon at this point.
Oh yeah, I agree. All of the stuff with Jon is for later down the line, and it's up to the show to get that right. But what I actually think about, when you think about it in terms of like the storytelling within it, with like Ned, it's like the man who was all about honor and took the absolute punt and risked his marriage in order to keep his word to his sister. That is like insanely good as a story. That's like so good. I feel like I did not expect to go into this season and out thinking that Ned was an even better character than I originally thought.
Yeah. I mean, look, it's ripped completely out of the source material, so it's no surprise it's great.
So that doesn't exactly. That doesn't,
Like, the whole Arthur Dayne fight, where Howland Reed backstabs him, and then the whole dream of Lyanna saying, "Promise me, Ned," is all from the first book in his dreams. And then George Martin, has confirmed to Dave and Dan by them guessing that Lyanna Stark is Jon's mother. So it didn't take that much for them to achieve this, to be honest.
No,
but
the idea itself is like insanely good as a reveal and a twist that really recontextualizes everything about like Ned, and like all the stuff with Catelyn and Jon is just really interesting to think about now. The fact that obviously they didn't know it, but the fact that Jon isn't a product of Ned being disloyal. In fact, he is a product of Ned being like insanely loyal.
Yes, kept his word to his sister.
That's like that is so rich, I feel like, in storytelling, in terms of like what they could do, in terms of just how you outlook in the characters.
Especially when you think about the fact that Robert Baratheon was in love with Lyanna Stark as well, and what that would mean if Robert knew that Jon Snow was the son of the woman he loved.
Because here's the thing, right? As the story is at the moment, the idea behind it is the fact that fucking which Targaryen was it? Was it Aegon? I can't remember. Which Targaryen was it that they say was it Rhaegar that raped the
Dany's
idea behind
brother.
it is there's a scene there's a scene with obviously Littlefinger and Sansa last season where they talk about that briefly with like Lyanna being given flowers in front of Rhaegar's like arranged marriage. I think I can't remember the scene specifically.
So Rhaegar is betrothed to Elia Martell, who is Oberyn's sister.
Yes, because Oberyn talked about that in season 4. When he was in a wedding for King's Landing last.
But and Robert loved Lyanna, but then Rhaegar this broke the hearts of both Elia Martell and Robert Baratheon because of what was going on. This is also you got to remember, this is also a thing about like how Catelyn was betrothed to Brandon Stark and Littlefinger wanted Catelyn, and they had that fight where Brandon Stark sliced Littlefinger's chest with a sword, which unfortunately we never actually have seen the scar in the show. I wish we did. Because Littlefinger
obviously
never
the story behind that all though is Rhaegar kidnapped her and raped her. Yeah, that's sort of like, and killed her, which is sort of like that's the narrative that everyone thinks. But at the moment now, it's actually she died in childbirth. Was it still a rape though? That's the question though, and I feel that's something that is probably going to be explored. We know that the fact that he murdered her is a bit of misinformation because now we see how she dies. Well, because Selmy talked about him like as not as someone who enjoyed killing, he enjoyed singing. So there's little bits here and there to talk about like not everything. It like adds up in terms of how people think about Rhaegar.
You gotta remember that Robert Baratheon, the king, hated Rhaegar, and it was believable for him to say these things because he was the son of the Mad King.
Yeah, because the whole thing with Targaryens is that the gods flip a coin. Man, they make that literal in season 8, which is just completely missing the point.
We'll get to that.
What great storytelling.
There's also another part about season 8 that they steal from a different character in the books, but we'll also get to that when we get to that.
But yeah, I guess to like summarize that, I just think that's it generally is probably my favorite scene in the whole season is that reveal.
Yeah,
I generally really enjoy it,
and also the match cut as well to Jon's face.
The match cut is fantastic. Yeah, it's such a good direction.
I mean, maybe like when you combine the opening sequence, ignoring the writing, and then you match it with that moment that we just talked about, I think that's possibly why people hold The Winds of Winter in such a high regard, as well as like the art direction and the music and everything. But it's everything else in the episode. That's the reason why I think it's overrated, because it's fucking dreadful. But for me, season 6 is where Jon starts to fall off. I really like him even in season 5. I think it's when he comes back to life. The consequence of that resurrection is that he loses his character, and that's a shame. And it's a shame that he loses his character in this season, because this is the season when the revelation about who his mother is revealed. Like, imagine if that was revealed. Imagine if that had been revealed when he was as good as he was in season 5. Like, that would have been amazing.
That'd been so good.
Yeah.
And what I love about when you look back at clips of like season 1, like Ned's and John's like final moment together.
Yeah.
I really wonder if Ned was actually going to reveal everything about John's origin.
When we next
That
see
he's not
each
actually,
other,
and this line of like, you may be a bastard, but you still have my blood. It's just like that's still true, which is like I think that's beautiful to think back at. With now the new information that we have.
Yeah.
Again, like I said, it makes Ned's character so much stronger. If I could have a favorite character this season, it would be Ned.
That's crazy.
Because his reveal of like John not actually is his son, but someone he protected due to like Robert would have killed John. But why? That's the question.
The only thing that pisses me off about Ned this season is that he's associated with Cardboard Bran.
Yeah.
But I will say, like, there is that scene earlier in the season when he gets off his horse to see Sir Arthur Dane. That's actually really enjoyable. Yeah. Like the dialogue between them.
The other dumb part about Ned being in the season is that really silly fight scene with the guy with 2 swords.
Oh, you mean Arthur Dane? Yeah.
Yeah. The sword fight itself is just like, it's flashy, sure. It's very visually interesting, but it's a bit silly.
Well, that was the only way that they decided, well, how are we going to have him fight against 4 guys? We'll just give him 2 swords.
Yeah, and he wins nearly.
It's like, it's annoying because Arthur Dane is supposed to be the greatest swordsman who ever lived, but it's just the way that they show it is just a bit... but yeah, that's anyway, sure. This for me is the downturn of John. However, the worst is yet to come. We haven't got to the real like pit of hatred for John. I
don't want it. I never have. For you, she is my queen.
Oh God,
you are my queen.
We need allies. Anyway. Let's move on to the next character on my list, and that is Davos Seaworth.
He kind of... The actor is great. The actor is really great. I don't know why he hangs around with John for so long without really talking about why he's staying where he is.
Yeah, and the reason why that's a problem is because in season 2 he mentioned that he has a wife. So why isn't he thinking about going back to his wife?
Yeah.
And what
does
is
she
it
even
about
know that
John?
Her son is dead?
Like when it comes to his dedication to Stannis, I 100% believe it and understand it. But with John, I don't see it. I don't get why he suddenly is infatuated with this guy he's just met.
Because he's such a good guy.
Nah, it's just silly. It's silly how just over the moon he is to be John's
Why is there
guy.
not a scene with John asking why like Davos is still here? He can just go. He's got no allegiances. His army is dead. He can just go home and live out his days.
Why does Davos?
And that would actually be like that would be such a good scene as well. That'd be like insanely good as a scene.
Why does Davos Seaworth care more about Jon Snow than his wife? Explain that. What's the answer to that question?
He cares about a child more. Obviously, it makes sense why.
His son died in the Battle of the Blackwater, and he's never talked to his wife about it. Four
seasons ago. That was.
Yep.
And it feels like hardly gets fucking mentioned when that should be like what drives him more than anything.
Yeah. I think the only real noteworthy thing for me from this season with Davos is when he finds out about what happened to Shireen.
And that's at the last episode of this, or last 2 episodes of the season.
Yeah, well, that Battle of the Bastards only for the stag scene, not the fight. Because the fight's a different thing entirely.
And again, he gets... he practically kicks out the Red Woman, revealing what happened at the end of Season 4.
You mean 5?
Oh, yeah, sorry, 5.
Yeah. But I do think Davos takes a downgrade this season. In quite a few aspects. It's just weird how he just suddenly is so aligned with Jon. It's kind of like the the big, like, season 6, episode 1 has a lot of this, but I think Davos Seaworth is the epitome of the show, going, right, we have good guys and bad guys now. This is not a morally ambiguous show.
There's no conflict of interests.
Because when Davos was with Stannis, he was aligned with someone who has a lot of moral ambiguity to him, and it was really interesting.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Yeah, Liam Cunningham is always charming, but again, the writing matters.
Oh, he's a great actor. And he has really great scenes in terms of his acting, but it's just like, I don't know why he is where he is without really, he doesn't explain it.
Yeah.
And he should.
Yes. Let's talk about, well, we mentioned her before, let's talk about the Red Woman, Melisandre. Well, we know what she looks like without her necklace on.
Why did we need to see that? It does nothing for us this season. So I don't understand why that was a scene that we needed to see. She's actually old. Okay.
She seems really, like, depressed this season.
Well, yeah, everything is falling apart around her. And her god is
She's our only link to Stannis left. She's the only one who brings up his name.
Yeah.
Really, apart from Davos, maybe. But yeah, she's just sort of there, and she resurrects Jon, and yeah, and then she gets exiled at the end of the season. I would have thought that because obviously Jon finds out about what happens when she burns Shireen, and he will be against that. But I would have thought maybe Jon would have slightly more conflict around that situation, right? Because she brought him back to life. That's a pretty big deal. But again, as I said, they don't really concentrate on the fact that he was brought back to life.
Yeah. It literally isn't mentioned after, like, what, episode 3 or 4?
Jon's resurrection feels like a means to an end. It doesn't actually feel like an important detail.
It feels like more like a thing we need to do rather than it being actually, like, a part of the story.
Yeah.
We can't kill Jon, he's the main character. But we killed him last season, so what do we do?
But that's what was so great about season 1 is they killed Ned despite being the main character.
Yeah, exactly. So then don't kill Jon! Obviously, it was a part of the book, so they have to.
Yeah.
But, make a better fucking... If they're going to bring him back to life, you got to change his character or change at least something monumental about him, really. Not the fact that he's just worse at talking to people.
Yeah, I mean, again, well, I guess they didn't have to kill him in the show if they didn't want to.
No, they didn't really. If they don't know where to go with it, then they actually totally didn't need to kill him off. So that is absolutely true.
I guess it's just such an irresistible twist to do. It's just so perfect for TV.
Exactly, yeah. Because the idea that is like, he probably will be resurrected.
Another character that I think gets a bit of a downgrade this season is Tormund Giantsbane. I feel he becomes too comedic here. Like, he's really good in seasons 3 to 5. Like, he's a really complex character. He has a lot of tension with Jon. Even, like, season 5,
especially the second half of the season.
One. Yeah. In season
second
5...
half of the season becomes more of a gag.
Yeah, like, there's that scene in the middle of season 5 where he's, like, talking about how he's a man in chains, and Jon unchains his cuffs out of trust. It's really interesting, and, like, his whole thing at Hardhome as well. I really like Tormund in season 3 to 5, but in this one, he feels like he's just a bit too funny. Like, he starts getting this massive boner for Brienne of Tarth, and then in the Battle of the Bastards, he's just, like, just really stupid and clunky and silly.
Yeah.
The actor's fun, but I just think the character's it's just too cute. It's not... We've lost his more serious side, I think. And
yeah, which should be really fitting considering he's still off the back of like a lot of lost lives at like a Hardhome, and Eirich should probably. I feel like Eirich is just like not even mentioned at all anymore, which is quite frustrating.
Yeah, that's sad.
I don't understand like why she's not been talked about more in terms of like what she meant to the wildlings and Tormund and like Jon. It should absolutely still be like, I don't need it to be brought up every like 5 seconds, but like it still should be like, that was still a very recent occurrence that happened.
Yeah, maybe once this season would have been fine. I would have been able to accept that.
Just talk about how you miss Eirich. That could be like, even something as simple as that, it can be meaningful. It's like, come on. It feels like the show is forgetting things that like are like the standout things of like the show, except for like the sex and the violence. It feels like it's like become a parody of that at times.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't hate Tormund or anything, but I do feel...
No, I don't either, but it feels like it's just lacking a lot of,
He becomes more
substance.
simple. He becomes very simple in Season 6, I find. Very buddy, cheerful warrior that likes Brienne and eats food, like, without manners. It's just kind of like the funny bits from the previous seasons, but without any of the tension. Like, do you remember how amazing he was in Season 3 when he was traveling with Jon through, just south of the Wall? Oh my god, it's so amazing. It's so amazing. Anyway,
oh yeah, absolutely.
We have Edison Toulette, who is now the Lord Commander of the Night's Watch. I thought he was alright. I just think the plot around him at the start of Season 6 is really stupid. Like, the whole... the way that there's like a civil war over Jon's corpse. It's just...
That was so dumb.
Yeah.
Why did they leave the body and then ask for the body? Yeah.
But
it's just so fucking stupid.
Ed does have a line that I really like. It's from episode 3 when he sees Jon and he says, "Are you still in there?" Like, just that small detail, I just really like that.
Yeah, like, in terms of, like, being, like, friends with Jon, it's, like, one of the best parts of, like, The Wall. It's, like, his friends' interactions with Jon. Like, all of them. Even, like, like, people like Pip who, like, died and other characters, It was always interesting and fun to have that sort of banter, but brotherlyhood, relationship. But that just feels like that also feels like a big part that's been missing this season, is sort of that. Which is just a bit of a shame. Like, because he doesn't have Sam, he doesn't have anybody like that with him. He just has his army, which is like, just feels like it's a massively missed.
It's just
part
like
of the show.
we need someone that the audience knows well to be the Lord Commander, and he's the only one left.
Like, I get it. It's just, I get why this has happened. Obviously, like, the cause and effect of, like, having to go out of the Wall and Castle Black. I get it. But it's definitely a part of the show that is definitely missed.
It probably should have had another election, to be honest.
Yeah, that'd be interesting, considering he did die.
Like, we didn't need to see it, but at least have Jon say, do an election, and, I'm out.
Well, I'm gone.
Yeah. Rather than just,
like, have someone in charge that people want, while he's gone.
Just, like, handing him the cloak and be like, yep, it's yours now, and it's just, like, made a real
it's not really...
joke.
It's not really, like, fitting with, like, what the Wall is,
It's not really taken seriously.
No, it's just like, can you just do this while I'm gone, please? Thank you.
Yeah. We mentioned Ollie before. Again, Jon hung a child, and it's barely mentioned, if not at all.
Not mentioned, like, the episode after.
Yeah.
After that, it's just not mentioned.
I actually have big beef with the next one. I hate what they did with Alistair Thorne in this season. He was like,
they turned him into an idiot.
He was like a perfect character up until the end of season 5, and then in the first few episodes of this season, right at the end of his arc, he turned into an absolute idiot, and it's so frustrating.
Yeah, well, let's not move the body. Let's just leave it in the snow.
I'm just going to tell the entire Night's Watch that I did it, and so did Arthur Yarwick and Bowen Marsh. We all did it.
Oh, so we should kill you for being a traitor.
Yeah, and also, that's crazy how
what
they
a
just
massive risk that was.
They walk away from the body, and then they walk back to it, expecting it to be theirs.
Wait, we forgot the body. We forgot Jon's body.
Absolute idiots.
Fuck.
What were they thinking?
That's what they were, not thinking clearly.
Bloody, oh my god, that was a character destruction they did with Alistair Thorne.
Yeah, very quick.
Alright. Ramsay Bolton.
God. He kills Roose Bolton, which is really fucking stupid.
Tell them he was poisoned by his enemies.
What enemies? Yeah, and
kills his stepmom.
He kills his stepmom, which is just like
and his brother.
Violent when it's like, yeah, he's an evil, sick bastard. Like, yeah, it's like he's become so. Other than probably the last episode of his run, where the actor is like having such a great time with it because he knows it's his last episode, so like he's going all out.
Yeah,
he is just sort of. I don't want to say boring. But he is kind of boring.
Well, he doesn't change. He's the same guy.
Yeah, he was so much more interesting in seasons 3 and 4.
I would say even 5 to an extent. Up until the rape episode, I think he's actually good.
I'd say so.
I think the first half of season 5, he's actually really well done. It's just once you get to the wedding, it just falls off a cliff.
Yeah, it's just a nosedive off of quality.
Yeah. Unfortunately, he does have that one bad scene in season 4 where he has no shirt on and he's got blood all over him. It's just really garbage.
But it's fucking crazy. So that's why.
In this season, he like kills his family and then they just wait around until the battle.
Yeah, which they
I think they make him really stupid because he brings all his troops out into the field.
Because he's crazy.
Yeah, and they will listen to him. And yeah, his death feels very. It's just such a like
cringe. That's what it is. The word is. It's cringe.
It's just like what would be Sansa's ultimate revenge, I guess.
The dialogue, honestly, in his final scene actually is like. I always mention it when we talk about bad dialogue, but man, did Chris Chibnall like make his way into the writing room?
Yeah, it is that very like bad Jokerish dialogue, isn't it?
Yeah, that no one seems to be able to write properly without making it seem like insanely cringe.
Iwan Rion is so talented that I think he avoids like that Sacha Dhawan Jared Leto tier, but he's just above it.
Oh yeah, definitely. He's not on that level where, like, he can pull it off. The dialogue just isn't very good, unfortunately.
Yeah, but the actor is
not like
outstanding.
Sacha Dhawan in series 12 and
like that. That is the one thing about Ramsay that is consistent in the show is that the actor is outstanding in the role. Like he's so good.
Yeah, he's like really good. The dialogue is just bad.
But I guess I get what you mean though that there's hardly any variety with Ramsay in season 6 because he's the same in every scene. Whereas you think about earlier in the show,
he's the big bad that we need to defeat this season.
Remember, like if you think about earlier in the show, like in season 4 when Roose Bolton makes him a legit Bolton, like that scene where he's honored and bends his knee and is his
really
father.
Good.
Like it's great stuff.
Really good stuff.
Yeah. The North is mine, and you are Ramsay Bolton.
Yeah, I remember those quality scenes of Ramsay. Doesn't seem like that happens anymore.
Or like in season 5, when they're at the dinner table and he makes it really uncomfortable and he's just like, there we go, all done.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, Ramsay dies and it's just... And also, like, that look on his face when he sees the Knights of the Vale and it's just like, he just seems like such an idiot.
Yeah, he's pretty dumb at times, which is annoying because he shouldn't be.
Yeah, although seemingly
Season
he's not
3,
as dumb.
Man, he was like so smart.
Seemingly he's not as dumb as Jon though, which is weird.
I know, my men can be yours.
Yeah, and also actually
he's got a very small hint of like a lisp, a little bit with like how he speaks.
I'm just going to say this, if we're talking, like, if revenge has to be the outcome of Ramsay's end of his character, I think thematically it kind of pisses me off. It doesn't have anything to do with Theon Greyjoy, and it has everything to do with Sansa.
Yeah, that's what's annoying about it, more than anything.
Because I feel like Theon
should
have something to do with
Theon, obviously, what he did to Sansa is really bad. I think narratively it makes more sense for Theon to be more involved in Ramsay's death than Sansa.
Yeah, well, because the story with Theon is actually really strong.
Yeah. Like, he tormented him for, like, 3 seasons.
And actually, during
that's massive.
During that entire Sansa thing in season 5, Theon was there. And he was part of it.
Like, it affected him as well.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's what I've got to say about Ramsay. Don't be surprised if they don't ever mention him again. Because they said his name will disappear. Even though he was a massive part of the show for 4 seasons.
Even though he should be remembered in terms of, like, what you should not do. Like, it should be, like...
Technically, you could say 5 seasons, because in season 2, Roose Bolton mentioned him while he was off screen. A lot.
Yes.
Rickon Stark.
Moving on. What's the next character?
So he gets captured at the last hearth, brought to Winterfell, Shaggy Dog's killed. He's in Battle of the Bastards. He's bait. He runs in a straight line, gets arrowed, dies. 6 seconds of John's grief, and then he's forgotten about.
Not even mentioned after the episode.
Yep. And it's never ever explained why in season 1 he has dreams about the Starks dying. Never explained. Never ever explained.
I'm glad that's there.
He's from a pretty important house, but like Jesus, he's got to be one of the most pointless characters in the show, right?
He's yeah.
He's in the first 3 seasons, he's there, but he's too young to have an impact because he can't really socialize properly. Which is understandable.
Of course, yeah.
It's understandable. I get that. But now that he's actually part of the story again, like, they do absolutely nothing and then they kill him.
Yep. Anyway, moving on.
Yep. Osher gets killed by Ramsay in a really stupid scene.
Yep, that's done.
Now, unlike Rickon in the first 3 seasons, she was actually a great character. I really liked Osher.
Really interesting character.
Especially in season 3 when we learned more about her backstory.
Yeah.
You know, about her lover who died and turned into a White Walker.
Yeah, that was really, really interesting, you know, with her character.
And she explains, like, why she can't go beyond the wall.
Mm-hmm.
But then in this season, she's brought back and Ramsay kills her and it's awful.
Yep, real bad scene. That was really, really, really terrible.
Yeah, speaking of great characters that were completely ruined by their death this season, Roose Bolton.
The man who pretty much orchestrated the Red Wedding.
Well, along with Tywin Lannister, yeah.
Along with Tywin.
He's like the northern Tywin.
Also just gets absolutely butchered for no reason with his death. And there's no reason.
Because unlike some other characters, he was actually really good in season 5, Roose Bolton.
Yeah, he was. Really annoying. Just makes me really angry. Really angry.
Interesting character, really interesting like story, great actor. Everything was going for him, and then Ramsay just shanks him in the middle of the day.
Yeah.
Like, what a waste.
Oh yeah, just. I
was talking about how like Ramsay thematically his death not having anything to do with Theon is a waste. Same thing with Roose Bolton, the fact that his death has nothing to do with the Blackfish, despite the fact that the Blackfish appears in this season and dies in this season, is also a waste. Because Roose Bolton and the Blackfish being 2 survivors of the Red Wedding is like a massive deal, and they never meet again.
Jesus.
Can you imagine that scene of those 2 meeting again? That would be like incredible stuff.
No, but we got to do our own stuff.
But even if you don't do that, even if you cut the Blackfish out of the equation and you have it be Stannis Baratheon and Roose Bolton, that also would have been better than what we got.
100%.
But where was Stannis this season, Callum?
Dead.
Yeah, in the ground.
In the fucking ground.
And we sacrificed Stannis so that we could get the Battle of the Bastards. Was it worth it? Fuck no.
No. Yeah, real shame.
Turned the Battle of Ice into a pointless squash match when Stannis had the backing of the fucking Iron Bank and decided to move forward with sick, cold troops against a massive army. Brienne teleports, the Battle of Ice is over within like an hour or 2, and then it leads to Battle of the Bastards, which is a terribly like written fight with lots of plot armor and lying about the Vale, and it's just utterly terrible. Do you remember in like seasons 1 and 2 when Winterfell was one of the best parts of the show?
Yeah, it was really, really awesome.
Yeah. Anyway, Lyanna Mormont, played by that actress from The Last of Us.
Yeah, Bella Ramsey. They did a decent job considering how young they were at the time.
They don't overuse her here, which is nice.
Yeah. Their like presence is like interesting considering they're a young child, and the character is very interesting in terms of like the family that the character comes from. She's very interesting.
Yes.
That's kind of all I have to say about the character. Again, I think Bella Ramsey does a decent job.
I think the only unfortunate thing is that she's now starting to... Well, she has encountered John right at the point when his character is crushing under his own weight. And so when John's trying to negotiate for her troops, he's being an absolute idiot about it. And then she proclaims him king of the North when he absolutely does not deserve it. Because the only John that she knows is really just an incompetent fucking charity beggar, as opposed to the Chad John that we knew before. Like, if she was advocating for season 5 John to be king in the North, then I could understand it. But this John is just... I mean, he wins the battle, but he wins it by being an idiot and then completely out of pure luck surviving.
That's what I enjoy. Real good.
Like, there's being brave, and then there's being having complete, like, invincibility hacks.
It really makes me and helps me understand the stakes.
Anyway, one of the side characters I thought had a really good scene, and I guess he sort of had a bit of a payoff in the last episode, but mainly it was in episode 7 or 8, I think it was 7, was Robert Glover. We haven't seen House Glover involved in the story that much because they made cuts to the source material, because they're not like main characters, and we also didn't see any of like Theon's sister at Deepwood Mott earlier in the show. But Robert Glover gets that great scene where he rejects Jon Snow's offer, and I think the actor does a great job. And then at the end of the season, he says, "I doubted you, but I won't doubt you again, King of the North." So he kind of turns around. Again, whether or not Jon deserves it is questionable, but I like the idea. Anyway, so I will give you the floor for the next character. And that is Sansa Stark.
Jesus Christ. Where do I even begin? It feels like they're slowly just trying to make Sansa like just the absolute smartest person alive, without realizing she's doing some really idiotically stupid stuff. And it's really frustrating to watch. I just absolutely... The scene with her and Jon in the last episode just absolutely was just fucking infuriating. It was just so angry. I just got so angry with it. Everything to do with her character really frustrated me this season. And they're putting her seemingly on a pedestal of just like smartness, and it's really annoying.
I remember you mentioned online, it's very Clara Oswald-esque, isn't it?
It's giving Clara vibes. And that's not a good thing.
My theory on this situation is I feel Dave and Dan this season are now going, well, now Sansa's going to make decisions the same way that Littlefinger would. And that's not earned.
Because she stood around him for a really long time. Because that's how being really smart works, not reading books and stuff.
Yeah, so her getting redemption and revenge for the whole Ramsay rape marriage thing is really stupidly done. The Knights of the Vale thing is one of the most heinous and stupid decisions in the entire show. Even the start of the season when she's with Theon and the Bolton men are trying to get her, and like that whole situation was garbage. The way that she reunites with Jon at the Wall and they don't talk about the fact that he was murdered and resurrected is crazy.
Off screen, seemingly.
Yeah. And yeah, the scene where she has the dogs eat Ramsay is super cringe and feels like something out of Batwoman. Like, it's insanely cringe. And then you get the last episode with that awful scene where Jon congratulates her on saving the day, which is just unbelievably retarded. So yeah, I have not got good things to say about Sansa. Also, she fucking still trusts Littlefinger for some reason, despite what happened last season.
But why would you? As she says.
Just insane. Insane stuff.
Yeah, what a great character. Just hitting it on all cylinders.
And unlike, you know, some of the other actors, Sophie Turner's not the kind of actress that's going to elevate bad material in the same way that others do. So it just doesn't hit.
She's not that dynamic as an actress.
Yeah, Sophie Turner needs good writing, and when she has good writing, she can be really good.
Yeah, she really does.
Season 4, Season 4 in the Eirich, she was great.
Yeah.
Speaking of, Peter Baelish, aka Littlefinger, he doesn't get as much screen time as he does
Hardly any
season, but he's fucking terrible in everything. Jesus Christ. He was, like, every scene he was in was awful. Somehow.
Oh boy, was it.
And despite the fact that Aidan Gillen's one of the best actors in the show, it did not change a damn thing. It was garbage. His whole character is completely lost. He's completely lost the plot. Why is he hanging around Winterfell when no one trusts him? Why does he think Sansa's not going to turn on him? Why does he want Jon to have the Knights of the Vale? I guess it's because he's a simp. Why does he return to Sansa and Brienne thinking that he won't be executed for his crimes?
Big hand in, Ned dying.
He gets by the skin of his teeth. Why does he not flee back to the area where he's safe and can continue ruling and manipulating? Unbelievably bad writing.
From top to bottom.
I think the only good scene he might have is the one with Robin Arryn and Jon Royce. That's okay, but everything else sucks.
Pretty piss.
Do you have anything to add?
No, because he's just an abomination of a character now. It's just nothing like he was before.
Yeah, he's dropped off. Like he's had one of the worst drop-offs in the show, I think. He's had one of the
definitely
sharpest turns.
And we're not even to the real bad seasons yet. Like, real bad. Even though this is pretty bad.
Yeah, because we got more to come.
Beautiful, love it.
Yeah, would you describe him as a smart person?
Before I definitely would have before. Now I don't know, because the show decided to not make him smart anymore. For seemingly no
He was amazingly smart in season 4.
Yeah, he was great.
Waited for Joffrey's death to take Sansa to the Eyrie, killed Lysa Arryn so he'd have power.
Yeah, he's the man who helped kill Jon Arryn.
You know what he does after that in the books? He infects the child, Robin Arryn, so that he will die young. Therefore, the next person in line is Harold Harding, and he will marry Sansa to Harold Harding, so they own the entire area of the Vale. It's really intelligent, and that will lead him to having more power and the biggest and best army in Westeros as well. And that will help him in trying to secure the Iron Throne, because he'll have the best army. It just makes sense. But instead, in the show, he marries her to Ramsay and then visits her after, expecting to get away with it somehow. And now he's here at Winterfell for some reason that we don't know. We don't understand what he's up to. Like, what's his scheming? Also, why did he have that whole fucking thing with Cersei last season? Like, that was so strange. What was that about?
No idea. No clue.
He came back to Winterfell to grab some curtains, apparently.
Yeah, I guess so.
But yeah. Brienne of Tarth. I don't know what to say. Really?
They really didn't do much at all this season.
I think she has more presence in the first half of the season.
She had a really good scene with Jaime, but that was kind of it in the second half of the season.
She did have a very good scene with Jaime.
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
And the start of the season, she had a bad scene with Melisandre and Davos.
Yeah.
Talking about how she killed Stannis.
That was certainly something. Yeah, she really hasn't done anything really this season.
When Sansa was about to be in peril from Bolton soldiers, she appears out of nowhere to kill them.
Yeah, that happened. What fun.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful stuff. Beautiful writing. Cause and effect. Love it.
Podrick Payne, one of your favourite little characters.
I mean, he's just a pleasant surprise anytime he's on screen, so he doesn't have to do anything and I'll still enjoy him.
He gets molested by Bronn, though.
Yeah, he does, and it's really not funny at all.
Yeah.
It's just really strange, because that's all Bronn is now. You look back at any clips from the first, 3-4 seasons, and it's just he was more than just, I like sex and fighting.
Bronn in Season 2 is great. He
Oh
is
yeah, his
so,
whole thing.
and-
Fucking the line of like, just because they're pale doesn't diminish our friendship. Enhances it, really.
yeah, his whole role in the
Fucking
Black Order as well.
hilarious.
It was great.
I saw you kill a man with a shield. You'll be unstoppable with an axe.
And he has
It's
that
so
face
funny.
He has that face off with the Hound in the brothel.
Oh yeah, that's great.
But now he's just like cock jokes 24/7.
Cock jokes. Yeah, that's like saying I have the biggest cock compared to the entire Unsullied army.
I noticed we're talking more about Bronn than we're talking about Podrick.
Yeah, because he's Podrick is just there and he's like insanely based all the time. That's what I say.
Yeah, fair enough, but he's barely in the show.
Yeah, put him in more. Put him in like every scene.
Like, apart from having his dick grabbed by Bronn, what does he do at Riveron?
Just be a sweet little boy.
I guess so. Okay.
Yeah.
Now we have a character that I have kind of mixed feelings on this season, because he kind of hits a weird stagnant point in some regards. And that's Theon Greyjoy. Because this is like his post-Reek season.
Yeah, which should be massive, by the way.
Yeah.
It should be
so
really, really impactful and important.
I like his goodbye to Sansa. I like his speech during the King's Moot about what it means for his sister to be ruler of the Iron Islands. I like Alfie Allen's acting. He's great. He's always great. But I think what's going on around him just kind of sucks. I hate Euron. I hate Tyrion. Like, the way that they talk to him just fucking pisses me off to no end. They kind of go a bit far with the whole, oh, there's, you know, you can't have sex, Theon. Isn't that so shit for you?
Yeah, it's just really frustrating that that's just what the character is now. I don't like it.
And he doesn't feel as important to Game of Thrones as he used to.
Yeah.
But he does have his moments this season, I think. He's still consistent with who he is, at the very least.
Yeah. His character isn't, like, ruined itself.
Although the worst moment is probably when those Bolton soldiers try to get Sansa and he, like, doesn't move away from her. He just moves closer.
Yeah.
And also his motivations for going back to the Iron Islands when he didn't even know what happened to his father is just a bit strange. It's just weird.
A little bit.
But yeah. What? Oh, and also when they, like, steal the ships without being seen somehow. They just steal all those ships.
They just get away.
Yeah. I think my beef more so has to do with, I guess, the fact that they've added this lesbian comedic relief thing to Yara, and they've kind of just ran with it, and it's overtaken all of her other character traits that I really liked from, like, season 2.
Yeah. Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, it just feels a bit strange.
I wonder if Theon is just kind of a plot device for other characters this season. He
feels a little bit like that.
Sansa at the start.
Not ideal.
And then it's for Yara in the middle, and then at the end for Daenerys, like, he's like, here's my ships.
Yeah.
Also, fucking crazy that they travel from Pike to Meereen. Like, that's a huge distance, because they have to go all the way around the south.
Massive.
Yeah.
Yeah, boy. It's real long.
Yeah. But yeah, do you have anything more to add about Theon and his sister Yara?
Not really, because there isn't that much else to say, like, in terms of what they've done this season and what has changed, because nothing really has.
Speaking of cock jokes, Euron Greyjoy debuted here. Appeared
He was
on
in
a
one
bridge.
episode.
He was in 2 episodes.
Oh, 2 episodes. 2 episodes.
Appeared on a bridge, killed his brother, then turns up to the King's Moot, makes a bunch of jokes about Theon's dick and how he's gonna fuck the Queen. Has his
The
ship
big
stolen.
fucking cock.
has his ship stolen after his baptism, and then says he's going to build new ones with wood. He apparently
Build me 1,000 ships, and I will give you this world.
And apparently there's enough trees on the island to build ships and enough time on their hands to ride those ships after they've been built. Sure. Build the Iron Fleet from scratch. Lego set, guys.
Yeah, we got all the blueprints, so...
Yeah, I make no bones about it. I fucking hate Euron in the show. I think he's an insufferable person. And I think that word gets overused, but I think this is the time where you apply it. We're not quite at where he gets to next season, but I still think as a starting point, it's a very, very bad start.
It's not great.
Yeah. Especially because in the books he's like amazingly cool. And he's like he's like a really like evil like pirate wizard with a wooden leg and a blue tongue, and can, you know, conjure up spells, and survived Valyria, which was ruined by season 5 because Tyrion and Jorah Mormont just go there unscathed apart from the grayscale. And yeah, and he has an eye patch and he's awesome, but in the show he's just a frat boy who loves his dong.
Yeah, because that makes interesting characters.
Like he tries to act like he's this world-ending Kraken guy, but he's not. He's just really stupid. But
sure, I'll have
more to say about Euron when we get to season 7. That much I can say.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Balon died, and that goes for the Iron Islands. Let's move on to another one of our favorite characters, Tyrion Lannister. What a great season he had, right?
He fucks everything up and then gets handed the queen.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't make any fucking sense.
What does he do this whole season while she's away?
Joke and put Marine into absolute peril.
Yep, he drinks alcohol. He jokes about drinking alcohol. He forces people who've never drank to drink alcohol. And when he negotiates with the masters of Slaver's Bay, he doesn't use any smart tactics. He just says things, and then they reply, and then he thinks that was clever. He's awkward. He has a stupid little husband-to-husband buddy-buddy thing with Varys where he says, "Because you have no cock." And yeah, he's such an annoying little prick. I guess you get to see him unlock the dragon chains.
Cool.
Sure. And yeah, he encourages Daenerys to dump Daario Naharis, and then they put a badge on him that he doesn't deserve. This is just like this is kind of like what I said before about how Lyanna Mormont advocates for Jon Snow being King of the North without seeing his previous seasons, but this is that on absolute steroids times 100.
Yeah.
Tyrion is an absolute dumbass in season 6. He's like completely incompetent, and yet he gets made the advisor of one of the most powerful people in the show by the end.
Because he's Tyrion, and he's just like, we need to put him up there because he used to be smart, but he isn't anymore because the writers don't know how to write him anymore.
When you look at scenes of Tyrion from season 2 and compared to season 6, it's like a whole different person.
Because it is.
Yeah.
That's all it fucking is. It's just a different person.
Yeah. Was there anything good? I can't remember.
No.
I genuinely don't think he had anything good in this season. Maybe the goodbye to Varys in episode 8, possibly?
The smartest dwarf in the world.
Tell them what happened with the Mother of Dragons.
Super secret mission I need to go on. Let's not go with any guards. And let's talk in public.
Remember at the start of the season when they're like, "Oh, who's behind the Sons of the Harpy?" And it's never like really revealed.
They're just thugs.
Yeah, and also the Sons of the Harpy, they are at their best during surprise attacks, and then in the episode 9, they don't do a surprise attack. They do a one-on-one, like a front onslaught, and they get absolutely brutally destroyed by the Dothraki.
Cool.
And also, remember there's that really stupid thing at the start of the season where Daenerys' ships get burned only so that at the end of the season the Ironborn can give it to them. And they get burned. No one was guarding the ships. So it's like...
No one had an eye on it at all.
So if no one was guarding the ships, why didn't the Sons of the Harpy just steal the boats instead of burning them? They could have used those boats. Ridiculous. It's just such
ridiculous. The show is ridiculous.
And you know what's crazy is the only reason she has those ships is because they changed the ending of season 2. Instead of her fleeing away, she steals ships from Zarozo and Daxos. When that didn't need to happen, you literally could have just had her flee away. It's unbelievable.
Writing is hard.
Yeah, Peter Dinklage doesn't save this. He's just shit this season. He's really, really poor.
No. When you have a character who's just a bumbling buffoon, it's hard for the actor to really.
In season 5, he actually had a few good moments in season 5, despite most of it being not good.
Yeah, there were decent stuff here and there.
Yeah, mostly like the best scene was probably when in Hardhome when he advocates for Jorah Mormont not to be executed.
Yeah, that was interesting.
Or like when they talk about how his father died as well. That's a great scene. How they both their fathers had died.
Yeah.
Also, notice that like the death of Tywin Lannister, it seems to not weigh on him at all this season.
Hardly mentioned.
Apart from the fact that the only mention is, oh, we both had terrible fathers.
Children are not their fathers, or whatever.
Yeah. It's a shame that I don't have much more to say about Tyrion because he's such a major character. But
when he was like he's like one of the biggest players in the game, like 2 seasons ago.
But he's such a non-factor in season 6. He just does nothing and is shit. Like sits around Meereen not planning anything. He's just confused and befuddled. Oh, rubbish. Absolute rubbish. Daenerys Targaryen.
Again, what the fuck does she do? She burnt down a building and it was really cringe.
So you notice how like the Dothraki, they took her and then they said that they didn't recognize her, so they swarmed around just a random girl, not knowing who she was. But yes, she burned down a building.
Really annoying.
Really stupidly. And then she does all his speeches. And then I guess the only scene I probably really like is when she says to Jorah Mormont to go heal himself of his grayscale. That one's okay.
Sure, yeah.
But then, like, you get the whole battle at Meereen, which is just, it's like 10 minutes. It's just, like, so quickly over.
Yeah, I just don't like any of her scenes.
Yeah, she has that stupid speech at the end of episode 6 where she just rallies the Dothraki, even though she's already done that.
Like 100 times. She's done it a crazy amount of times, and it's just really repetitive.
I don't have much more to say. I'm befuddled. Like it's just she has like the Dothraki. They like talk about how they're gonna like rape the white bitch or something. Like that's all that was.
That's all that was. That's all it is.
And now she's headed to Westeros. How do you feel about this as the conclusion of her arc in the East?
Piss. It's utter piss.
It's rubbish.
It's a complete befuddle of like the entire build up to what her entire journey has been since season 1, and that's how she gets like all her ships, because they came to attack and then a dragon said like, I'm gonna kill you all.
Oh, I noticed how her dragons just like escape from the prison without.
Yeah, that was stupid. What timing that was.
They just blasted through.
Oh, we hear there's something going on outside. We gotta come out now.
Wasn't it also like very nice that the Iron Islands people, like the Ironborn, came to offer her ships right at the point when she didn't have them? Because at the start of the season, she did have them.
Yep. We need to give her ships because we burnt her previous like fleet.
I don't know what to say. I don't have anything else. All those scenes in the, the Dosh Kalin, where she's talking about to those depressed women, they just go on and on and on and they don't change. I mean, the worst moment for her in this season has to be when she burns down the building. Like, it's so bad.
Yeah.
Missandei and Grey Worm.
They're not even doing any of the decent stuff they were doing last season. Again, they just hung around a lot. Actually, you just sum up Marine like that. They're just hanging around doing fuck all.
I guess Grey Worm gets that moment in Battle of the Bastards where he slices those two guys' throats.
Sure.
Cool set piece that lasts 1 second. Yeah, they sit around and they have to talk to Tyrion begrudgingly. And that's how I describe it. What do you do during your free time? Unsullied talk about work. Talk about the Queen.
Okay.
In the last 2 seasons, they've progressed their romance quite a bit, but in this one, they just sort of hang around.
Yeah, exactly. They just don't really do anything at all.
Yeah. Right, let's talk about someone that's actually a bit more interesting. Jorah Mormont. He's only in the first half of the season. His grayscale grows. He goes to find Daenerys, but it seems like she didn't actually need him in the first place. Really?
No.
And then she pleads him to go and fix himself, and it's a really well acted scene from Ian Glenn.
Yeah, it's really good.
His banter with Daario Naharis is good. Like, they have a pretty good dynamic together about how he's too old and he's the young upstart, which is ironic because Daario gets dumped at the end of the season because he doesn't realize that Jorah Mormont's loyalty has more substance than Daario's. I mean, and again, he's better in season 5 because he actually has more to do, but I think just for the very small amount of screen time he did get at the start of the season, I think he was pretty decent. He bared witness to one of the worst moments, but it wasn't his fault.
Yeah. So I imagine he'll be trying to do that next season, I guess, or it's going to be done all off screen because he hasn't been around for ages now.
I'll let you have the floor for the next character because I know you like this actor. Daario Naharis. This is the last time he appears in the show.
What a waste of time. Such a weird character to do nothing with other than have Daenerys fucking a lot. It's just really strange. I don't get it. I just don't get the point. And he's it's a really wasted actor because I know how good he can be because he was really good in Hill House. So it's all right.
Well, he's
which
good
is
in
6
the
years
show
old now.
when they use him.
He was yesterday. That show is now 6 years old. So yeah.
In those
so
scenes
it was
where they
after,
actually use him in the
so.
show, he's actually good and they use him properly.
Yeah. Which is just really frustrating that the character just doesn't do anything either. He's hardly a factor. So it's just really strange. It's a character you could use so much more for than they do.
I mean, even again, as I said, in season 5, they at the very least give him and Daenerys some scenes together where they get a bit more personal, and he gives her advice.
It's just
about
a really
the world.
unsatisfying ending as well for a character.
Yeah, he shares his worldview with her in season 5. They actually share their differences and what he believes. Whereas season 6, he's just there and then he gets dumped.
It's such the dumping scene. I just find really just why is this in Game of Thrones?
It's weird because, how Daenerys was saying, oh, I did it to someone who loved me and I felt nothing. I was like, yeah, I felt nothing watching the scene.
I found that line was very strange. I don't need you to be, heartless, thought. No, I'm kidding. I don't need you to just be, weirdly heartless. I feel like you can feel something, but just not, love. I feel like that's fine.
Also, there's no progression as well, because it's not like the books where she was infatuated with him at first and then grows out of him. It was a phase.
The whole thing was it must have been hard to let someone go who loved you so much instead of someone you had a connection with. His lines like that I just find so strange.
Literally, from the moment she met him in season 3, she was always on top. She was always in a position of power over him.
Yeah.
Oh boy, let's talk about Varys.
He used to be smart and cunning and just really interesting.
He has a couple of really good scenes, but they are very rare.
Few and far between.
The one where he threatens the woman who has a child, because she conspired with the Sons of the Harpy. That's great. Then you get the scene with Kinvara in episode 5. That's great. Everything else is trash. He goes to Dawn and then teleports back in the same episode to Marine for no reason when they're going to Dragonstone. He goes from Dawn to Marine, and now he's going to go back to Dragonstone, which is closer to Dawn than it is to Marine by, like, times 10. Why doesn't he just go to Dragonstone and meet her there? What's the reason? What's the point? Why doesn't he just go to Dragonstone with Ilaria Sand when she goes there to meet with Daenerys?
I don't know.
But yeah, you give your thoughts on Varys.
I just wish he was more of a character again. He just isn't at the moment, which is really frustrating.
You can tell Conleth Hill's really trying, but he just doesn't have
He is,
words.
because he's a really good actor, but it's just... I guess we'll see more of him next season.
I don't think they've killed him as much as they killed Littlefinger, but it's getting close.
No.
I think the whole thing, the thing that he actually supports Daenerys is a big problem, though. And that was something I talked about in Season 5, because he spends all of Season 1 being against Daenerys, actively against her.
Yep, tries to kill her.
On behalf of Robert Baratheon. Ilaria Sand and the Sand Snakes, they have 2 episodes.
Good. It should be 0.
They somehow... Okay, I think the worst of it is in episode 1. So they somehow...
They were in the first episode and the last episode of the season. That was so cringe. That's so funny.
So the Sand Snakes somehow teleported onto the ship to kill Trystane, but they didn't kill Jaime, and I don't understand why they didn't kill Jaime.
I don't know.
And also, despite the fact that the guards all arrested Ilaria Sand very recently in Season 5, they all were okay with her killing Doran Martell at the start of this season. There's no explanation as to why. It's completely absurd. They also kill Area Hotel, the captain of guards. And she says, "No weak men will rule in Dorne." And then at the end of the season,
cringe.
Olenna Tyrell meets with them, and then Varys walks in the room and says, "Fire and blood."
Fire and blood.
Yeah. Awful. They knew that the fans hated the way they did Dawn in Season 5, so they just blew it up. They just completely nuked Doran Martell and Area Hotar, had all the guards turn on them for no reason, had Trystane killed, but not Jaime, which is nonsensical. Somehow they had teleporting skills. And yeah, they just basically cut them from the season. This was cowardly. Instead of writing a better story, he just got rid of them. They just got rid of them and did it in the worst way possible. This was stupid. Utterly, utterly, utterly garbage.
Love it. So cool. So interesting.
Yeah. And also that was kind of like the first instance of, well, if there's something that we can't be bothered to write, we're just going to kill them. We're just going to nuke them this season. They did it with Doran Martell. They did it with Roose Bolton. They did it with Osha. They did it with the Blackfish. And they did it with, like, the High Sparrow as well, even though that one was executed a bit better, especially with the visuals. But this whole season has just been, let's nuke off all the characters we can't be bothered to do writing with.
Cool.
Now we can actually talk about something a bit better, yeah. Cersei Lannister.
Very interesting. I would say this season, a whole lot of it was like the back and forth with Tommen, and then all leading towards, building up to that ending where she commits a very serious terrorist act. Yeah, I think the acting was fantastic from her all season, really.
Yeah, I think she's definitely one of the most consistent characters this season, but I do think she does fall back a little bit compared to Season 5.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah. Most of her best stuff is her scenes with Jaime, I think. She's really good in those scenes with Jaime.
I'd agree with that.
The first episode when she finds out that Marcel is dead, and then she has that scene with Jaime, that's probably one of her best moments.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Yeah. She has that scene with Olenna, which is great. Some of her scenes with Tommen. I think some of the stuff with the small council is a little bit just Ugh. It just doesn't.
Repetitive nonsense, yeah.
Bloody Pycelle farts, and apparently that's supposed to be funny.
Oh yeah, that was real. That was just weird.
Yeah. Also, I think this ending with In the Winter with her blowing up the set to Baylor, that contained Kevin Lannister, the Tyrells, and the High Sparrow. This has massive implications going forward on multiple levels. And when we get to season 7, I will have words to say about it. That's all I'm going to say.
Mm-hmm.
But overall, I think Cersei was pretty good, but not as amazing as she's been before.
I'd agree. Still think she's like one of the strongest characters in the show right now.
Yeah, when you really think about the rest of them,
which is quite,
okay, Tom and Baratheon.
Really interesting. I feel like in the end of it though, it's very strange because I feel like the build up to like everything surrounding him is very interesting, but there's scenes that we don't see that we probably should see, like the official bonding between the Crown and the Sparrows, which is I feel like that's something we could have probably seen, but they did that obviously for the reveal of it being surprising. I find the constant back and forth he has to deal with between everybody is quite interesting. I think the actor does a pretty good job with it. But that's kind of really it in terms of like that kind of stuff. It's not
almost like they just sort of he just sort of goes through things in order. Like there's not a lot of there's not a lot of depth to his scenes in the season. He's kind of just doing. They're just like he does this, and then this happens, and then this happens, and then this happens. A lot of those events are interesting.
Yeah, and then he dies.
Particularly the unifying of the Crown and the Faith, but it's just the actual inner monologue and the character they don't feature as much as they did in season 5.
Yeah, as a narrative, it's a little bit just okay. I guess that's how it ends. That's what it kind of just feels like when I think about it, just as a whole. Yeah,
but I do think the idea that he was so infatuated with Marjorie that he would kill himself without her is interesting.
Yeah, I would say so. I just wish there was a bit more of a narrative conclusion with him as a character.
Yeah, it does feel like they left a bit on the table with him this season.
I'd definitely say that.
Yeah. Speaking of Marjorie Tyrell, I have mixed thoughts here. I feel that they do a lot of build-up with her, and then it doesn't lead to anything. It just leads to her dying.
I feel like that summarizes King's Landing as a whole.
Yeah.
It feels very open-ended, even though a lot of things have ended.
Yeah, they did a lot of open-ended stuff.
Kind of makes you feel like, what was the overall point other than getting just Cersei on the throne?
Because there's that sort of red herring where she gives Olenna Tyrell the flower on the paper, like she's plotting something, and then she just gets blown up.
But really, the actual reason was we need to get this character out because we want her to live for next season. That's sort of what it is, really. More than anything more meaningful.
Yeah, because again, they can't be bothered writing a story for Marjorie past season 6.
Yeah,
they just
I
kill
feel
her.
like the last episode of the season makes King's Landing age a bit more poorly as an overall package.
And also, when you think about it, like Marjorie Tyrell, as a character thematically, being blown up by wildfire is not what I would have chosen as her death.
No, doesn't feel as personal.
I guess Cersei killing her, yes, but it's just the way she kills her. I do like the scene where she sees her brother in prison, though. That is a nice scene.
Yeah, I agree.
And like again, as I said, they kind of do this build up where she's starting to like read the read the 7-pointed star, learn about the religion, become
to fool them,
acquainted with the High Sparrow to try and get her way around it. And
then it kind of just ends.
Yeah, it's very blunt.
Yeah, and that's sort of like, I didn't really think this at the time when the season ended, but when I think about it more, and just sort of like the overall impact of King's Landing, it's a lot of setup, and there isn't actually really a satisfying payoff that has an actual narrative meaning. It's more of a plot device. It's a narrative plot thread to get Cersei on the throne, which is like, right.
All the characters that we don't want in season 7 and just blow them up all at once.
Yeah. Because like we had a lot of really cool, like interesting things to say about King's Landing throughout the last 2 seasons. And this being the ending makes it just feel like I might as well have just, I don't know what.
Now that this has happened, there's hardly anyone left in King's Landing.
There's literally like a handful of characters left now. So making it feel a bit more... The only real conflict left is Jaime and Cersei. That's kind of it.
I think so, yeah. Because Kevin's dead, Pycelle's dead, Marjorie's dead, Loras is dead. The High Sparrow's dead, Lancel Lannister is dead, and Tommen's dead.
Yeah. Yeah. It just feels a bit like...
And Mace Tyrell. Mace Tyrell is also dead as well. We should probably mention him. He comes back from Braavos to help out his daughter, and then it turns out he didn't need to help her anyway.
Yeah, he's just sort of like a character that is, again, just sort of there. Has funny jokes here and there for being like a cringe dad, but that's kind of it.
He was better in season 5. I liked when he was in Braavos and he was singing that song to the Iron Bank. That was fucking hilarious.
Yeah, that was fun.
And when he thought it was an honor to be on the small council, but everyone was making fun of him.
Yeah.
Especially in season 4 when Tywin was just using him.
He's very usable and very useful in those regards, but is very unaware.
Let's talk about a character that had a very tragic season. That was Loras Tyrell.
Yeah. He kind of was just like imprisoned for like the entire time and then tragically died.
Yeah, confessed to all of his quote-unquote sins, like being gay with Renly and Oliver.
And then died. That's again, I feel like we're just summarizing up all these characters in the same way. They had these things and then it ended. That sort of just sums up King's Landing this season. 2 seasons of build-up and then it just ends.
Like the wildfire thing, it has great shock value and great spectacle, and for Cersei's character specifically, it works. But that's it?
Yeah, that is.
Like, it's a great sequence in itself, but going forward for the show, it kind of just kills an entire part of it. Let's talk about a character that I do love, though, and that is Olenna Tyrell, the Queen of Thorns. She's always great.
Had to keep her around.
Yeah, she doesn't appear as much this season as she did the previous 3.
No, and that's a bit of a shame. So she'll probably be in a lot next season, I imagine, then.
She does get a killer line, though, against Cersei, where she says, I don't know if you're the worst person I've ever met.
Up there, though.
Yeah. And then she bullies the Sand Snakes in the finale.
Yeah, that's funny. Because they're shit.
Yeah. I think my biggest problem with Olenna this season is that after her family has been massacred, we don't really see her grief.
No. We really should, though.
Especially because it's the same episode as well.
Yeah, that's even more strange.
I think that act genuinely might be the first and only, like, big problem I have with Olenna's character in the show.
Says a lot about her, yeah.
Yeah, because she's been pretty unscathed up to this point. I don't have much more to say about the Tyrells, to be honest. They just kind of all died.
Yeah, because they end. That's all it is, really. It's just an ending to them, and that's kind of it.
Let's talk about a character who was pretty much perfect until his last moment, and that was the High Sparrow, played by Jonathan Pryce.
Yeah, in terms of acting and sort of like performances and like presence, I really enjoyed him. But again, it makes me feel like what is the overall meaning behind it, and I don't really know.
The problem with the High Sparrow in season 6 is that a lot of his scenes are very inconsequential to the big picture. Like, they're great individual character moments where Jonathan Pryce is able to show off his presence. And he, even in something like episode 4 where he's talking about shoes, like, it's such an irrelevant point to the show, but he makes it interesting because the dialogue is really good and also the acting is really good. And he has all these very, like, big, moral prophecies about religion and stuff and life and, like, his worldview, and it's cool to watch him sort of process that with characters like Tommen and Marjorie. But the problem with the High Sparrow is those scenes don't matter to his overall arc, and the way he dies is really dumb because he doesn't predict what's going to happen, and he doesn't see it coming when it's pointed out to him, and he denies it until his last second, and that was dumb.
I agree. How interesting would it have been if he just dropped the entire facade to try and get out? How interesting would that have been at just sort of like a final moment?
Absolutely.
I feel like that's where it was meant to be going, really.
Absolutely, yeah. Because he hints at it in his performance that the facade is there, and underneath the eyes you can see the real man. He presents himself as a pope, but he's actually more like a demon. He does get this great scene this season though with Jamie though at the start of the season. That was amazing. The best thing going forward would be in season 7 to have the people of King's Landing that believed in him throw a revolt over Cersei for this, because they've basically killed the Pope, basically.
Yeah, essentially.
Imagine if the Prime Minister of Italy just bombed the Vatican and killed the Pope. That's what's happened, and you'd imagine that the people would riot over that and try to overthrow them, because it's just like an insane level of terrorism against a very respected building. Like, this is like an ancient representation of the religion of King's Landing.
Yeah.
Lancel Lannister also died.
Yeah, he did die, and I don't have that much else to say about him, really.
Yeah, I think he's relatively unscathed in the show, but again, it's just this season he just
But he's not
exists.
really a major player at all.
He does have a very epic death, though.
Yeah, he's the first to die.
Septa Unella was waterboarded.
Oh yeah,
by Cersei.
she's still alive. And it's gonna. I don't know if she's ever going to be seen again. I don't think so.
She was waterboarded by Cersei, and then with wine.
Yeah.
And then the mountain raped her, I guess.
Possibly. Yeah. It's kind of just left ambiguous, I guess. So. Just something bad really happened to her, so...
I heard a story about the actress was told only, once she'd been strapped down to the table, that Dave and Dan walked into the room and said, hey, this is what's going to happen with the scene. They changed it. And apparently they waterboarded her for real all day.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Yeah,
Fucking
and
hell.
she had bruises all over her body, yeah.
Oh, God.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
That's something.
Fucking crazy.
A little bit, yeah. I don't think she got treated like that on Ted Lasso.
No, she didn't. Or on bloody Sex Education.
Yeah.
Gregor Clegane, The Mountain. I think my beef with The Mountain is that one scene where that guy talks about how he flashed his cock at Cersei and then the Mountain just kills him. I think it's really strange that the leader of the Queensguard is out in the city.
Oh, yeah, that did happen this season. Oh, wow, yeah.
The leader of the Queensguard is out in the city randomly heckling people, just strangers. Surely that is something for the City Watch to deal with, not the Mountain. But apart from that, he just sort of stands there and then he waterboards Unella and rapes her. So that's all I've got to say.
Yeah.
He just exists. He stops Tommen from leaving his room.
No, you cannot leave.
Yeah. He's got an ugly zombie face. Grand Maester Pycelle died this season.
He's the one that gets ravagely murdered by children. Yeah.
Yeah. He farts at the small council and then he gets stabbed by children. And Qyburn takes over.
How wonderful. It's an ending.
I would have thought that in his last scene the facade would have dropped. Just like what we said about the High Sparrow. The fact that he is blubbering and old even in death. I just don't know. I feel like we should have seen the real guy in his last scene.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Because they just kind of dropped that after season 3.
They did. It was one scene and then it was kind of it.
Well, if you count the deleted scene, it's 2.
Ah, yes.
Because he has the scene... technically it's 3, because you have the scene from Fire and Blood with Roz where he teases it. Then you have the scene in the end of season 2 where he flicks the coin at Tyrion. And then in the deleted season 3 scene with Tywin when he's fishing. I would have liked to have seen Pycelle give way one more time. Qyburn did stuff. He prepared the wildfire. He killed Pycelle, I guess. He was on the small council. He's kind of background, isn't he?
Yeah, very much so.
He seems like more of just like a tool for Cersei to use.
I would say that is quite true.
Yeah. And that's where we're just like filing through these characters.
Yeah, because that's sort of like the summary of King's Landing in a nutshell, where the best part of them was previous seasons, and then everything building up to this season is just sort of done in one fell swoop.
This is why I prefer season 5 over season 6, is because these characters we're talking about actually had something to do.
Yeah,
note.
They just hung around a lot.
Yeah. Kevin Lannister goes back to Castle Rock, and then he comes back at the end of the season, and he blows up in the Sept of Baelor.
Another character that's just killed because we don't want them anymore.
I'll give you a little funny bit of thing about the books. In the very last chapter of A Dance with Dragons, which is the last official book to come out, the epilogue chapter is a Kevin Lannister point of view after the Walk of Atonement, and he gets shot with a crossbow by Varys, and it's great.
Oh, wow.
And at that point in the books, we hadn't seen Varys since Tyrion escaped King's Landing.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So he was at the end of A Storm of Swords with Tyrion. He doesn't appear at all in A Feast for Crows. He doesn't appear at all in A Dance with Dragons. And at the very end of that book, he shoots Kevin with a crossbow and puts his hood up. And it's like this big reveal that he's been plotting behind the scenes all this time.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's better than Kevin's death here.
Well, he's just there. He doesn't say anything in the scene. He's just a fact. He's just a little bit in the scene.
Yeah. Okay. Jaime Lannister. I think I prefer the second half of the season over the first half overall. He does have that great scene with Cersei in episode 1. He sticks around in the small council and does absolutely nothing for a bit, and then he goes to Riverrun, and the Blackfish scene's good, and the scene with Edmure's good, and the scene with Brienne is good. But he does, and the scene with Walder Frey is good, and then he teleports.
Yep, because it needs to be there just as it happens, even though it makes no sense.
Yeah, but basically, episode 1's really good, and then the stuff outside of King's Landing when he goes to Riverrun, he's quite good in that as well. That would be my take on Jaime.
I agree with that.
His best scene is probably the one he has with Edmure Tully in the tent, I think.
Yeah, that's great. That's a really great scene.
And the scene with the Blackfish on the bridge.
Yeah. Ignoring all the other parts of that episode, yes.
Yeah, I actually, to be fair, his scene with Tommen in the Red Keep is also quite a good scene as well.
Yeah, I enjoyed it.
Yeah. He's probably one of the better characters of Season 6.
He's one of the stronger characters, that's for sure.
Yeah. But I do question where his arc is going at the moment. It's a little stagnant. I mean, he's better this season than he was.
We should know by next season, really.
He is better this season than he was in season 5, though. In season 5 with Dawn, that was just pointless.
That was just a fucking mess, so...
Yeah. When he fucking, beats his guys in a sword fight through sheer luck and catches a sword with his hand.
Yeah. Yeah, that was dumb.
This is the part where I really feel having Jaime with Ilyn Payne would be so much more interesting, to have a guy who's a mute and have that be the dynamic as opposed to Bronn and his cock jokes. But I guess the TV show
I would 100% agree, because Bronn really shouldn't be here.
TV show is apparently supposed to be light-hearted entertainment, though.
You need jokes. We need jokes.
But actually, you know what? You bring Ilyn Payne to Riverrun and he has a scene with Podrick Payne. That could be something.
Yeah. I would agree with that, certainly.
Because I'm pretty sure by this point, the actor's cancer was in remission, so he could have come back. Oh dear. Walder Frey died in this season. By eating
Yep, that's the end of Walder Frey, I guess.
by eating a pie of his sons, somehow Arya was able to pull that off.
Somehow, yeah. And he dies, and Arya is a psychopath in terms of how it's presented.
So how do you feel about the fact that this is how the big bad of the Red Wedding ends?
Again, it's very unsatisfying.
Mm.
It's very just upon you, and then it's just out of nowhere. And that's just sort of like, okay.
David Bradley's great, but again,
it's
just the stupid death.
Yeah, I'd agree with. I would say that is definitely the case there.
Like, they've kind of wasted one of the most easiest, most satisfying deaths they could have done in the show, and they just kind of did this.
And they couldn't even do that.
Because again, it's like, well, we don't want to have Walder Frey in season 7 or 8, so we'll just kill him now.
Yeah, I guess so. I guess that's how they wanted to do it, and they did it, and it was really unsatisfying.
Yeah. Blackwater Rivers and Lothar Frey, though, I thought they were kind of funny. Because they threatened Blackfish. Yeah. They threatened the Blackfish, and it didn't work at all.
No. And then it gets slapped up.
Yeah. Edmure Tully has a few scenes.
Yes.
He's sent back to Riverrun, used as bait. He has a scene with Jaime, and then he is the one that lets them into Riverrun. So he actually technically betrays his own house because he wants to protect his child.
Yeah. Yeah. I enjoyed that scene a lot. In terms of the scene with Jaime.
Because they tied it back to Catelyn.
Yeah, they did.
I guess Edmure's role in this season was fine.
Yeah, I guess it was.
I'm grasping at straws. I can't say the same for the Blackfish though, because as much as those scenes with Jaime are great, as soon as he decides to die, it's all ruined. Like, they almost get away with him being a good character this season, and then he just goes, yeah, this is my home. I fought long and hard. Sansa doesn't need me. And then he just dies. Off screen. The best place to ever seen. Off screen.
Those are the best character scenes.
Well, what were your thoughts on the Blackfish this season?
I enjoyed that one scene with Jaime, but I think the death is just really stupid. It's so needless. He doesn't need to die. And then the only reason they did it again, to kill another character off because we got no use for him.
Yeah, because they're like,
when that happens a lot during a season, it gets a little bit annoying.
Yeah, because they just know that if the Blackfish goes to Winterfell in season 7, it just won't, they'll have to work really hard on the script. Because imagine if the Blackfish meets Jon Snow, it'll be a really interesting dynamic, and that doesn't happen now.
Yeah.
God, now I want to see that. Imagine if the Blackfish did meet Jon Snow.
Not happening now.
You are Ned's bastard. That's so interesting. Because the Blackfish loved Catelyn. And Jon Snow represents something that hurt Catelyn very deeply.
Yeah.
But Dave and Dan just couldn't be bothered.
No, we can't do that.
Surely they could have had him in season 7.
No.
Come on.
No.
Arya Stark.
What a waste of fucking time. Not only that, it was also just a fucking comedy at that point. Just this entire season.
So
what was the fucking point?
She goes to the play, sees Lady Crane, Richard E. Grant, and she has that beef with the waif. The waif stabs her. She goes into sewer water, survives that somehow. Lady Crane fixes her with milk of the poppy and some bandages. And then she jumps out a window and they do the stupidest action scene ever. Arya kills the waif off screen. She goes back to the House of Black and White, puts up her face. And then Jack and Hagar says, finally you're no one. And then she says, I'm not no one, I'm Arya Stark, making the entire 2 seasons arc pointless. She goes back to Westeros and kills Walder Frey in a really stupid way. Somehow is able to bake his sons into a pie without being noticed, and then slits his throat like a menacing psychopath. It's all terrible. Cringy and terrible. I think a couple of moments in the play were fine with Lady Crane, but that's it, really. The play stuff is okay. As soon as the waif attacks her, though, it's all downhill.
Massively downhill.
Yeah.
It's a comedy.
Oh, yeah.
That's all it is. Everything to do with her arc and narrative and story is just a complete comedy.
The action scene in episode 8, it reminds me of something out of Aladdin, but it doesn't make sense.
And just not good.
Because at least Aladdin doesn't have a fatal stab wound. Jack and Hagar. What a mysterious flop.
Why have we done this? Why have we decided to do this with a character?
Remember how awesome he was in season 2? He was great.
He was so good in season 2. He was so interesting. Yeah. But now he's just a meme at this point. He's
just weird. He's just a strange person. And as I said when we did near the start of season 5, the whole point of the Faceless Men is just completely gone because they're not anonymous. It's like they are these people, like Jack and Hagar and the Waif. It's like, no, that's not how it works.
That's not what the point was. Yeah, dearie me, indeed.
Remember the start of the season has Arya Stark is blind and she has to try and earn her sight back or something?
And then she got beat up on the streets and no one cared.
Yeah, no one helped her.
They just see that every day, I guess. Just real dumb.
What this season has like really confirmed to us is that the people of Bravos are cunts and they don't care about anyone else.
I guess that is true.
What do you think about the waif doing menacing looks and stopping before she walks so that she can give Arya time to walk
really
away?
Cringe, and they should be really disappointed in themselves that they decided this was good enough to release on TV.
Remember when she kills Lady Crane and like pushes a stool down?
So silly. It's just so silly.
Speaking of Lady Crane, I thought she got some good dialogue, good actress, but not enough.
Agreed.
And Isambaro, played by Richard E. Grant, was fun. He was the best thing about Bravos.
Mm-hmm.
They let him chew the scenery.
That's quite sad, isn't it?
Yeah. This crowd is shit.
Oh, God.
And it's also sad that like Dave and Dan have reached a point in the show where they've got to fill up time, so they just show a play of events from better seasons.
Yep, and have really good acting doing those scenes, unironically.
It's kind of like an anime when they do a recap episode, but they did it in Bravos.
Haha, yeah.
Yeah, okay, Samuel Tarly.
It's a mixed bag.
I can think of a couple of pretty major issues. The main one being like the whiplash of him just like suddenly changing his mind and then stealing the sword.
A little bit no build up to that, yeah.
Yeah. And also just that whole first scene at Old Town with all the jokes. I just don't care.
Yeah.
Wow, when you really think about it, life is confusing, or whatever it is he says.
Yeah.
Life is strange.
Certainly is.
But the dynamic with his father, especially, was excellent.
I enjoyed that for what it was.
Yeah. There was some weird character stuff at the start of the season that I will say, I didn't like that. I thought it was just, before they get to Hornhill.
Yeah, a little bit like that, yeah.
Yeah, this was kind of the filler season for Sam, wasn't it? Because it was between the Wall and Old Town.
But they got the sword, though, which will be important.
Yeah, I guess they did. I actually think Gilly gets more to do positive than Sam this season, because when she goes to Hornhill, her reactions to his family is fascinating. and how she feels when she dresses in that like womanly dress that she's never worn before. Also, you know, concern for a baby child. When she meets Sam's mum and his sister, who are really sweet to her, she feels like for the first time in her life, she's encountered like a matriarchal figure who has actually treated her with respect. Obviously, Randall Tarly completely degrades her, but it reminds her of Craster, and that's why she hates him. She's like, I've encountered this before, I know how to deal with your type. So I actually do have some good things to say about her. In that episode,
I agree with all of that. I agree with that.
Only episode 6, though. Everything else, I don't care. Genuinely, episode 6 of season 6, this is actually some of Gilly's best stuff I think she's had in the show. I would go as far as say that.
There's some stuff that I did really like in little moments.
My favourite thing about Randall Tarly is the actor who plays him. I think he nails the performance.
Yeah, I think he does actually a really good job.
You brought a wildling to my table, and I thought
Certainly
the war would
did.
change you. I thought the Night's Watch would change you, boy, but you're still fat.
Very good stuff.
My issue with Randall is that we haven't seen more of him in the show.
Yeah, it's sort of like quite late on into seeing him at this point.
Well, if we were going by book adaptation, he theoretically should have turned up in season 2 around the time when Renly was in the Stormlands. And we also should have seen him in, I would say, probably season 4 or 5 with Brienne of Tarth. Or perhaps the Hound,
sure.
one of those two. That's kind of where he would be, but they didn't include him until now. And it's a shame because he's great. Speaking of the Hound, he returned this season somehow. Came back from the dead.
Somehow he has returned.
Yeah. You give your thoughts on Sandor Clegane.
He had an episode that was really quite dedicated to him, and the death of all the people around him was quite stupid, and yeah, he's back in the fight, and that kind of sums up his season.
The explanation for how he survives falling down that cliffside as well.
Real dumb. Hated that.
Yeah.
Oh, just everything about it. It's just like I don't care that much about it really.
I mean, he does get some good lines, but that's about it, really.
Pretty much, yeah. And now he's with the Bannerman Without Banners. So
yeah. Now, my main issue with this though is that he hates the Brotherhood Without Banners, so he's doing it reluctantly, right? But
yeah,
the problem with it is that back in season 4, he said to Arya, I would like to move to Essos. I think the Second Sons will be a good fit for me. So why isn't he going and doing that? Because he said that's what he wanted to do. It's like they just forgot.
That is what he said.
They just forgot that that's
just
what he
kind
wanted.
of forgot about.
Like, can you imagine him joining the Second Sons and then he meets up with Daria Naharis? That could be interesting.
Could be. That's for sure.
And then, oh my god, imagine that happens and then Sandor Clegane and Tyrion meet each other again. Oh, there's potential there.
I would agree. There is potential there.
Yeah. Yeah, because we get Beric Dondarrion and Thoros of Myr back. They're fine, I think. My biggest issue with the Brotherhood Without Banners is that they've completely removed Angai. He was actually a pretty cool part of Season 3, the Archer. He was real funny, but he's just not there, which is a shame. But yeah, we'll have to wait till Season 7, because they just kind of set it up here, that the Hound and the Brotherhood Without Banners will be banded together going forward.
Yeah.
Okay, next storyline, we have Bran Stark.
Yeah, it's just again, this felt like a very spinning on wheels season for him.
Because he wasn't even in the last season, so he was coming back.
We obviously had the whole stuff with Hodor in the middle point of the season as a reveal of why he says Hodor. So
yeah, I feel like his quote unquote training with the Three-Eyed Raven is a massively missed opportunity.
It's very much skipped on.
Yeah, he also gets the only scene with the Night King in this season.
Yeah, I guess that is true, yeah.
And it was silly.
A little bit, just a tad silly.
Yeah, the hold the door thing, he sees the flashbacks. My main issue with the flashbacks is his dialogue is so trash. It's just really cardboard and exposition-y.
Yeah, that's my dad.
Yeah. And then, when they're being chased by Whites, Benjamin Stark returns.
Yeah, very briefly, and then he doesn't really do much.
We waited all this time, and this is how Benjamin returns. And it just sort of happens. I don't think we get that much out of it, do we?
No, it's literally just a couple of scenes.
Yeah.
In totality.
Yeah, Mira Reed is there, I guess. The only scene I remember really liking was that last scene she has with Hodor where they talk about how they haven't eaten proper food in so long.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, a nice blood sausage and a rasher of bacon. Hodor, Hodor.
Yeah, that's pretty much it in terms of, like, overall stuff they did. They really are just hanging around waiting for something to happen.
It's sad that they completely cut all of the dark side of the Three-Eyed Raven that was in the books. He's just like an information Wikipedia person in the show. He's just there, he just exists, he knows things and says things, but he has no characteristics, no drive, nothing. He's just a thing that exists. A Wi-Fi tree.
That's what he is.
Whereas, like, you know, in the source material, like, he's an actual character that lived and was around and had a motivation, and he actually had a lot of very, you know, dark necessities and whatnot.
That'd be interesting to explore.
Yeah, but they don't, do they? He just fizzles away. Bran downloads his brain.
And he loses all his personality.
I am the Three-Eyed Raven. I see all. I know all. I wonder, like,
I guess you do.
What is your interpretation for why Bran can't hear the secret conversation that Lyanna has with Ned about that last thing she says about Jon?
Yeah, because realistically, he should... they don't really explain how it... Do they super explain how it, like, intrinsically works?
Not really. I don't remember the Three-Eyed Raven
sort of... It's just so up in the air of, like, what he's experiencing.
I don't ever remember the Three-Eyed Raven saying that this time travel is blocked by, like, private intimacy. Like, they never say that.
Yeah, it's just sort of, I don't know, I guess... Because he can say stuff and Ned heard it, so it's just sort of like... what's the sort of rules of this?
Is there very unclear.
I would like it to be sort of explained.
They've introduced time travel into the show as well, which is quite a big thing.
They have, and it's sort of like just kind of brushed on, but not really.
Well, Hodor is a bootstrap paradox, and Jon is Lyanna's son, and that's kind of what we learn, mostly. Yeah. That's what we learned. The direwolves get fucking nothing. What is Ghost even in this season? I think he might be at the start. He is at the start when Jon gets resurrected. Summer gets killed by White Walkers.
Yeah.
And that's it? Ghost isn't in the Battle of the Bastards, is he?
No, he's not. Even though that probably would have been at least a little bit useful.
And the dragons. Well, my biggest issue with the dragons is how they escape.
Because they just knew to come out right as Dany was flying over. Yeah, it's just sort of like, alright, I guess they are there. They're all there.
Dany finds Drogon again. He's just around a corner randomly as they're walking. Like, it's just so, like, there's nothing exciting about that at all. Think about all the exciting ways that Drogon and Dany could have found each other again. And she just finds really Drogon behind a random wall of sand that they just happen to be on. Yeah, the White Walkers and the Night King. I guess we learn how the Night King was created this season. The Children of the Forest.
Yeah, we did for a bit, yeah.
They put dragonglass into his heart to try and against the war against like the First Men, but it backfired on them.
Yes, that happened.
Yeah, right. I think that's all the characters. That took ages.
Yeah. But a lot of repeating in terms of like certain locations.
Yeah, it's actually very arduous to talk about this because season 6 is so flat in a lot of aspects.
Yeah, it is. It certainly is. Agreed there.
Best season ever, though, right?
I guess if people say that.
Okay, standout character of season 6. Who did you choose?
This was hard because, like, there's a lot of characters who just didn't do much, but also others that had really good scenes here and there. I've gone with Cersei Lannister because I feel like in terms of, like, her best scenes, I think the performances were absolutely stellar, and I feel like the character is in a relatively interesting place compared to a lot of others in terms of her current standing. And it realistically, yeah.
It's not as like strong as season 5, is it? When she won best character.
No, it's not. It really isn't. Which is a bit of a shame. So I think Cersei for me, is yeah.
So interestingly, though, season 5 actually has a bad scene with Cersei. That's on with Littlefinger. But everything else with her is so damn good on so many levels. But yeah, this was tricky. There were two characters I could have chosen from. I feel Cersei and Jaime were the only ones that were consistently like really interesting throughout the season. I've gone with Cersei as well. Because despite my issues with the finale and the sequence itself in terms of writing, I think her character's part of it is great. It's that my issue with it is to do with everything else. Maybe her reaction to Tommen could have been slightly differently, like after he dies. She is probably the best character in the season. She gets a lot to do. She has a lot of good dialogue scenes. Having said that, I still think it's a slight downgrade from season 5 because it's not as dynamic.
Yeah, I'd say so.
There's just not much to choose from. She's pretty, like, good, I guess. And that's the best character.
She's pretty good.
Yeah. Standout location aesthetically. So we're not talking about, like, the writing in that location. We're talking about, like, how it looks. Like, how fancy was it?
I think because, for me, the last episode, I would say King's Landing. I think that's just managed to put it over for me with how the entirety of the build-up to the wildfire blowing up. I think the direction of that was all just stellarly done, and I think, like, just everything about it aesthetically was just, like, really interesting. It's, like, one of the most interesting parts in terms of, like, how that whole section and sequence is done.
I considered that, but I was thinking about, like, the entire season. I think it's only really applicable to the finale.
Yeah. I could have gone for a lot of things, but that sort of just eked it out for me with that whole sequence.
There's a few options I could have gone for. I could have gone for Vias Dothraki, but I didn't because it doesn't look anything like season 1, and that's an issue. I was thinking maybe Riverrun, but there's not quite enough visual spectacle. I could have gone for Bravos. That was maybe an option, but I didn't. I didn't quite get there. I could have gone for the Cave of the Three-Eyed Raven. I think it looks cool, but the problem I have with it is that why is there a metal door on a wooden tree cave? I was thinking maybe Old Town, but we only get like a couple of shots of it, like really properly shots of it. It's almost cracked it. But the one I've gone for, we get a few scenes there in flashbacks. It is the Tower of Joy, which is near Starfall and Dawn, and it's the scenes with Ned Stark. I think the entire presentation of the Tower of Joy is pretty much bang on. They just happened to find a location that just worked perfectly for it. The way it looks outside and the way it looks, the spiral staircase and inside as well in the finale. I just love the whole presentation of the Tower of Joy. It's a bit of an unconventional pick, but there's something very visually memorable about all those scenes. So yeah, that's the one I've gone for. The standout side character, so just to reiterate, no Starks, no Lannisters, no Baratheons, no Targaryens, no bastards from any of those houses, and no Theon Greyjoy.
Yeah, I feel like for me, this one was the most difficult one.
I still haven't decided. I've got about 7 different options. Okay, I'll read out my 7 options, and I want you to tell me if yours is one of those 7. Davos Seaworth, Jorah Mormont, the High Sparrow, Marjorie Tyrell, Olenna Tyrell, Qyburn, Randall Tarley.
Mine's between. I've got 2 of those
Okay.
that I considered majorly. I guess I could tell you who I went for. The one I went for, it was between 2. It was between Jorah Mormont and the High Sparrow. I went with Jorah Mormont because I feel like he's still relatively on a path this season, going out of it into next, that I think can be paid off well. And I feel like his redemption is something that could be very interesting. And I think they've done a decent job with it. I also think the actor has just done a great job with it throughout every season, pretty much. So for me, I went for Jorah Mormont.
He was also our choice in season 5.
Yeah, which is saying a lot.
Yeah. So I've narrowed it down to Mormont, High Sparrow, and Olenna Tyrell. I think I might agree with you, and the reason why is Olenna Tyrell is only in 2 episodes, and in the finale, we don't see enough grief of her loss. And the High Sparrow is an idiot in the finale, so Jorah Mormont's the only one that's unscathed. So yeah, interestingly, our standout character and standout side character is the exact same as season 5, but both of them are lesser than they were. Now this one's interesting. Standout music track from Raymond Javadi, who's always great, no matter what the season is.
Yeah, this one I had a few choices, but there was one, and I guess with how I described the scene, it's no surprise. It's the one that probably I feel like has the most fitting and strongest part of writing behind it, maybe. Maybe not the strongest, but it's certainly up there in terms of like what I think is enhancement of like the overall show and like some character and characters. I've gone with The Tower. I think what is excellent about this track is like the integration of the Stark thing with a slow build up, and sort of like how well suited it is to the scene, and sort of like the meaning behind it, and like the realization of everything to do with Ned Stark from the beginning of the show is like it's now been recontextualized really well, which is like, again, coming from this season, considering how annoying it was, to have that is like really, I'm thankful for that part of this season, that it enhances one character from the very first season and doesn't ruin him. The track itself is just so beautifully done. The build up to it is just insane. And then you get the crescendo of it all with the Stark theme, with Jon being revealed with that great shot and cut. Yeah, this track is insanely good, and it's been in my head since we watched the finale.
Yeah, when it comes to like direction and music in the show being 1-in-1, that moment of the match cut is one of the best. It's amazing.
Agreed.
My stand-up music track is probably not a surprise because I gushed about it in the review. It's Light of the Seven. Also from the same episode. It's 9 minutes. It's the instrumentation of the 20-minute short film that is Cersei Does 9/11 on the Sept of Baelor. The build-up with the piano striking such a different tone, perfectly fitting the visual cinematography with Cersei's theme, the absolutely beautiful mix of piano, organ, and strings together is just, it's timeless and epic, and it's just got this amazing tension and release that goes on and on and on, and it just kind of like evolves and turns and twists, and then by the end it's this massive explosion of sound. There's a reason why it's got like 113 million streams on Spotify. It's because it's just this universally recognized epic piece of music. And yeah, I can listen to it over and over and it never gets old. It's just this brilliant, brilliant score. It's so well done. It's so, also, as you said when we were doing the reaction, it's so different to the rest of the show as well. It's got such an outside the box way of doing the music compared to the rest of the show. Raymond Javadi in that finale really put on his best A game, I think. Okay, now this next one is something that we could have an absolute field day with, because there's so many things to choose from. Standout worst thing from season 6.
I'm so curious if we have the same one, because I don't think we do, but there's a possibility that we might.
I have one in mind, but I have a short list that's about 8 options.
I knew what I was going to pick instantly.
Okay.
So my standout worst thing that happened during the season is Sansa not telling Jon about the Knights of the Vale, which would have saved them hundreds of soldiers and possibly could have saved Rickon. Fucking stupid. Everything to do with that moment is fucking stupid. And that just sums up the season in a nutshell, really. That moment. Fucking hated it. I could have picked the moment where Jon fucking says it was all Sansa, that the reason they won the battle. But but the moment Sansa just not telling Jon for no reason is just fucking stupid.
Yeah. So yeah, we had quite a few blunders this season. We had the Blackfish deciding to die. We had the Dawn plot being nuked. We had Euron's characterization in the Kingsmoot. We had Ramsay killing his family and having no consequences. Dany's Essos resolution was awful. Arya's Bravos arc failed miserably. The worst thing about the season has to tie to the North for me, because I feel like that is its biggest blunder. I did heavily consider Sansa not telling Jon about the Vale, but I've decided to go for a bit of a bigger concept that encaptures the entire season. Jon's resurrection was a massive failure in every category, because it's bad at the Wall and then it has a massive ripple effect on the rest of the season, because it's never brought up, it's never delved into, and that also follows into the latter parts of the season at Winterfell as well. I think it's such a major, major thing that the show did to have Jon be killed and then resurrected, but the way that it just has absolutely nothing to give you as a story is utterly ridiculous, and the collateral damage it has on so many characters like Davos Seaworth and Alistair Thorne, and just condensing the show to good versus evil, the way that Jon's character completely downgrades in every aspect. It's just, yeah, it's something that impacts the entire season. It affects every episode that Jon's in. And yeah, I hate it. I hate the way they handle his resurrection. It's just so bad. But Sansa not telling Jon about the Vale is also god-awful. As an individual, stupid decision. Yeah. Not good. So, finally, the episode ranking. From 10 to 1. I think this might be the hardest one we've done so far, because they're all very close.
Yeah, I've really had to take into account to what rating I gave them all.
Yeah, there's distance. So there's a lot of distance between 10 and 1, but overall it's a big clump. And they're all very close in my mind. I would like to start, though.
Alright, go right ahead.
Yeah. Controversially, my number 10 is Battle of the Bastards.
Snap.
Yeah. This is possibly the most overrated episode of television ever. It's hailed as a masterpiece, and it's not. It's fucking awful in almost every scene. Only redeemed slightly by Davos Seaworth finding the stag and possibly a bit of dialogue with Jon and Ramsay. The Meereen plot ending is about as lazy and stupid as it possibly could have gone. The whole thing with the Red Woman is just so nothing. Sansa not telling Jon about the Veil, as we said, is ridiculous. And the entire battle itself is a sloppy disaster, full of stupid decisions that have no consequences, insane plot armor, Rickon Stark killed and forgotten about. The actual dynamics of the battle are really just wonky and not well thought out. Things like the bodies piling up despite not being in an enclosed area. Sansa's last scene with Ramsay is the epitome of cringe. Things like Ramsay killing Won instead of Jon is just ridiculous. Like, yeah, this whole I hate this whole thing. Almost all of it. It's almost entirely garbage. Yes, you could maybe argue that Miguel Sapochnik made it kind of look pretty in some sequences, but I don't get much out of it because the sequences themselves are just such a mess. And the dialogue is terrible, and yeah, it's just a nasty disaster. That doesn't make any sense, and it's awful. Ruins the Marine plot, ruins the North plot, both in one episode. That's my thoughts.
Yeah, this is like, when you tell me this is like, it's one of the most highly regarded episodes of TV ever, I just think, fucking hell, this is overrated as hell. The battle was dumb. Sansa is dumb. Tyrion is dumb. The ending of, like, just the ending of every Marine plot is dumb and just unsatisfying. Them just not planning, just everything about it is just fucking stupid. And the ending is cringe. Real cringe. What a fucking travesty of an episode.
You snapped, so what is your number 9?
My number 9 is Book of the Stranger.
Snap.
Yeah, this episode was kind of dumb. I think like the icing in the cake was I fucking forget her name of character. Well, the icing in the cake was the final scene. Let's get that right. Daenerys fucking burning a fucking building, and it's just so cringe and awful and just like comedically bad. And this again, probably a scene that, and she walking out naked is just real bad. But then the rest of the episode is like just sort of like annoying. You know, you've got the scene with like, Sansa and Jon not talking about how Jon just died. They just sort of kind of brush over that, which is kind of just like, lovely. I love it when we do that. It's just so awesome. Everything to do with Tyrion and Marine is just annoying. I hate it. Everything to do with him this season is just really fucking annoying. The whole you got Jorah, you know, trying to save Dany. That whole was just like really strange, and how they did it was just very strange. You've got the High Sparrow, who's like relatively interesting, and the scene with Marjorie.
He talks about shoes.
Yeah, talks about shoes. Obviously, you got like you hinted at earlier, the scenes with the small council in this episode and just throughout this season are just very strange. All of them. Mm-hmm. It's a remember when the small council scenes were just like really interesting. Yeah.
Let's not forget, this is also the episode really when Ramsay kills Osha.
Yeah, that's Osha. That's what I was hinting at earlier. It's like that scene is just. Everything about that scene is just like everything I hate from what the plot does to make sure characters die. Just, hate it.
Yeah. There's that scene with Littlefinger and Robin Arryn and Jon Royce, I guess. And also Theon's on Pike, but like the motivations are really confusing about why he's there.
Yeah.
And like the whole King's Moot, it's just very odd. Because he didn't know about the death of his father before he got there. So why is he going? And it's like, very odd. But this episode, like, it's a mixed bag. Like, the King's Landing stuff is fine, and Runestone, whatever. Pike is a bit iffy. But Winterfell, Castle Black, Marine and Vias Dothrak is all absolute garbage on a fucking pile. It is diabolically bad in all 4 of those places. And that's why it's second from the bottom. Yeah. Redeemed by Jonathan Pryce talking eloquently about shoes. Yeah. And,
God.
The Marjorie Loris scene is okay. Should we talk about my number 8?
Sure.
My number 8 is the Red Woman.
Snap!
Oh, wow. Isn't that funny?
You'll probably have more to say this than me.
This is the episode that kills the wall. Absolutely obliterates it, fucking head,
They just
front,
leave
and
his
center.
body out there. Why would they do that?
Alistair Thorne is an idiot. Davos Seaworth just joins John out of the blue. Like, that for me is one of the biggest fucking heinous things they did. Like, the wall is unbelievably terrible in this episode. And then you've also got that stupid thing with Theon and Sansa where they're being chased and then Brienne saves them out of nowhere, and it's just an awful scene. Bravos Arya's getting whacked with a stick. In Marine, Dany's ships get burned and Tyrion and Varys walk around being idiots. Tyrion talks about how Varys has no cock and it's really cringe. And yeah, there's no guards for the ships, so the Harpy burn them instead of stealing them. In the Dothraki Sea, the Khals say they didn't know who Daenerys was, and they talk about raping the silver-haired bitch or whatever the fuck it is. And in the Water Gardens, Doran Martell gets killed by Ilaria Sand and the Sand Snakes. So, in theory, this should be bottom because every scene I've just mentioned is utterly, utterly, utterly terrible. But
the
this
episodes
is
before
saved.
are worse.
This is saved. The only reason why this is not bottom is because of King's Landing. King's Landing in this episode is amazing. When Cersei sees Mycella's coffin coming back with Jaime, and they have that scene together after, it's genuinely lovely. And the High Sparrow visits Marjorie. Although I will say when Babar and Nymeria kill Trystane, that is awful, ridiculous. But I count that as part of Dawn, not King's Landing.
But what about the final scene? That's just like so amazing.
Yeah, the Red Woman being naked and old.
She's so gross and old. Ugh. Yeah.
And like as a follow-up to like the death of Stannis the Manus, this is pathetic. Like, it's so pathetic. Cersei and Jaime saved this from being dead last.
Yeah, I've got nothing more to add. I just repeat everything you said. It's just what a shit way to enter a season.
Yeah, it's absolutely diabolical, and the King's Landing is really good. That's all That's all you really need to say. What's your number 7?
My number 7 is Home.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, this just continues on with the wall being fucking stupid. It just makes it just really cringe stuff. Best part about it is probably the stuff in King's Landing. Again, same as the previous episode. But Marine is real dumb. Tyrion goes and unchains the dragons, I believe, in this episode. That happens. Cool, I guess. He tells a story, which could have been cool, but that's... Arya's getting beaten up in the streets constantly, which is funny, but shit. And then you get the little cream on top, which is the death of of Roose Bolton.
Oh god,
wonderful.
And also you get Euron killing Balon as well in this episode.
Oh yeah, you do. Yeah, you do. Which is like a bit. That's like the least annoying part of the episode, weirdly enough.
I am the drowned god.
What a fucking absolute waste of time Roose Bolton was in this. Yeah. Just a feeling. Yeah,
so this next one is a bit complicated for me, my number 7, because there's actually some really good stuff in this episode. My number 7 is No One. Because as much as I do like some of the stuff in King's Landing they do in this episode, like with Tommen not allowing trial by combat, having the Mountain kill one of the Faith militant, and then obviously there's the scenes with like Brienne and Jaime and Brienne and the Blackfish. That's all great stuff. And Jaime has the great scene with Edmure Tully. I think this, in theory, should actually be one of the best episodes of the season, but I cannot, in good conscience, rank it highly. The Riverland stuff with the Hound and the Brotherhood Without Banners is whatever. Same with Varys and Tyrion and Meereen, whatever, don't care. But the reason why this is so low is because Braavos has some of the worst ever Game of Thrones. Ever, past, present, or future. With Arya, the Waif, Lady Crane, and the Hound. Not the Hound, Jack and Hagar. It is like 0 out of 10 television for the entire of Braavos in this episode. And whilst the rest of it has a lot of good stuff in it, it completely tanks this episode by a million %. It's one of the worst things in Game of Thrones. Arya has a lethal stab wound. She falls into some curtains after a long walk and gets fixed with milk of the poppy and bandages. Lady Crane is pushed down stupidly on a stool. Arya jumps out a window, is chased through the streets, rolls down concrete, kills the waif off screen, and the Jaqen stuff happens. Like, it's just, there's nothing good about it. It's all terrible. And it is a throbbing, painful cancer on what is otherwise an okay episode of Game of Thrones. So yeah, I've pushed it this far down purely because of how terrible Braavos is in it. It's just, because it is the main feature of the episode, really. What's your number 6?
Oh, well, it's the door, obviously. Very controversially, I'd imagine. Yeah, they fucked Littlefinger in this episode. That's really annoying. Again, they have Sansa just fucking berate him, and it's really annoying. And just it reminds me of like, oh man, remember when this character was like really good? You got the King smart, which is yeah, that happens, and that's really, it's just really. Just real silly. And I don't like it. You get a scene that's like really good in this, in Meereen, that then doesn't go anywhere. Which could have been really interesting. Like, it's really interesting scene.
Retroactively, it has less value.
Yeah, unfortunately. Yeah. And then, like, it's just, again, everything to do with like the wall just continues to annoy me in every regard, and it's just why must this part of the show, which used to be like one of the best parts of the show, be continually annoying? And obviously, you know the whole Hodor hold the door thing is like, on paper it's like, I feel like, I guarantee you people think it's more clever than it actually is. I feel whenever I see...
I mean, I think the idea of hold the door being Hodor's thing is good. It's just the way they do it.
Yeah. I don't think it's nearly as clever as they think it is.
Well, let me put it this way, because, like, Hodor meaning hold the door is a George R. R. Martin thing. But he hasn't actually written the scene where it happens yet.
Yeah, exactly.
He told Dave and Dan that that's what it meant, and they wrote a scene about it.
Yeah.
But
and it's like, sad. It's definitely sad, yeah.
It's like the essence of the scene is good, but the actual foundations of it aren't.
Sure, yeah. Yeah, controversially, that is very low on my list. So
I mean, that's not as controversial as putting Battle of the Bastards last.
Yeah, true, but still.
Yeah.
I'd imagine that's number 1 and 2, and 3 would be the next episode.
My number 6 is Home. As you basically echoing what you said, Jon's resurrection is just... I hate using the word boring these days because it's such a nothing word, and I prefer to be a bit more like interesting with my vocabulary. But that is exactly what this is. it is the most boring way to do a resurrection. It's flat and not earned and not interesting, and not like, you compare that to when Beric was resurrected in season 3, that like awesome scene in Kiss by Fire. Yeah, it just is there, and the impact on the rest of the season is very negative. Bran looking back at Winterfell, seeing things in the past, having no interesting character in like interactions with it itself. The fucking mountain killing the drunken man for no reason, like he just shouldn't be there. Meereen is bloody disgustingly bad. It's just so pathetic. Arya being beaten up with a stick again, and like Jaqen being there is stupid. Ramsay killing Roose Bolton is unbelievably heinous. It's like such a terrible twist. Euron killing Balon is just whatever. The Wall is terrible. All of it. Alistair Thorne and Davos and all that crap is just... I just don't care. The only good scene I really remember from this was actually a great scene, and that was Marcella's funeral at the Sept of Baelor when the High Sparrow confronts Jaime. That's an amazing scene. I love that scene. I probably, like, you could make a strong argument for why this should be below No 1, but I hate the Braavos stuff so much. I hate it with like a burning, fiery passion. Home is my number 6. What is your number 5?
My number 5 is The Winds of Winter.
Okay.
Yeah, so what saves this from not being lower is sort of the whole production and setup of the first 10 minutes, 15 minutes. Because it's really well done, other than the High Sparrows not figuring it out like he probably should. After that, pretty much when we leave King's Landing, after Tommen's death, is where the episode really starts to fart itself into oblivion, constantly, scene after scene after scene, until we see Ned, seeing his sister die and Jon being born. But then it's just like sort of like setting up next season, and that's kind of it. So pretty much from the end of King's Landing at the beginning to Jon's birth, it's just an absolute disgrace of a final episode of the season to then end this era of Game of Thrones going into the next, which is like the end game. This could have been amazing. This could have been one of the best episodes of the show, if not the best, and one of the best episodes in television. And it fucks everything up that it needs to get right. And it's so frustrating. I hate it so much when we get scenes like Sansa and Jon, and then Dany having a breakup, and fucking the scene where Sam tries to be funny and it's not. But the library part is cool. It's just little bits are in there when I'm like, man, this should be really higher on the list, and this should be better, because it absolutely could have been, which is more frustrating than anything.
But then you look at it from a pessimistic angle, the script is so terrible it makes you wonder why you haven't ranked it lower.
Yeah. Really saves itself from not being like bottom or second bottom with the first 15 minutes.
20 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah, sure, but I'm more talking about the entire build up to the explosion.
Well, Tommen jumps out the window at the 20-minute mark, I believe.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah, my number 5 is The Door. This is a really, really mixed bag. The Wall is utterly dreadful, especially the Littlefinger scene. And everything with Jon, and the whole pink letter bullshit. Like, that's just one of the most insulting adaptations. That is utterly diabolical. The other part of this episode that's utterly diabolical is the Iron Islands, the whole King's Moot with Euron and like stealing the ships and everything. I hate everything about it. I guess actually that's not true. Theon has like a few good lines, but everything else is so terrible. The way it's all set up, the way Euron's characterized, the way that the ships are stolen without anyone noticing, the way they're going to rebuild the ships. It's all terrible, and there's no Victorian Aaron is barely a character. I hate all of it. And then there's some other stuff in the episode, like, I believe this is when Arya starts watching the play. I could be wrong about that, but I believe this is the episode when it happens. And we do get some good reactions out of Arya, which is nice. But the inciting incident before it isn't the best. Sort of like the waif drilling her and Jack and Agar giving her missions. The arc of Arya is really inconsistent, because like she does all these really bad mistakes and then she'll make one good decision and Jaqen just like immediately forgives her. He does it in season 5 and he does it again here. Vyas Dothrak might be one of the better parts because it's the whole scene with Jorah Mormont and Daenerys, grayscale scene. That's really cool. And of course in Meereen, the scene with Varys and Kinvara is good until it's revealed that it has no end goal and it's completely just pointless and kind of a red herring. And, you know, they tease things about Varys' past and we don't really ever learn anything proper about it. And then, of course, you get Beyond the Wall with Bran and Hodor. Again, I just have very mixed feelings on it because I think in essence, Hold the Door is a great idea, but it's just the execution in the show. It just sort of doesn't capitalize enough on the moment and making it an actual scene. I also think the moments with Bran and the Night King are really dumb as well. So yeah. Very, very mixed bag is The Door. Probably leaning more bad than good, I think, overall. What is your number 4?
My number 4 is No One. This only just beats The Winds of Winter because of Jaime, realistically. Because I think that scene is incredibly well performed and well done.
I did forget to mention one of the other reasons why No One is so low on my list is because it's when the Blackfish decides to die. I hate that.
Yeah, it's really bad. It's really, really annoying. It only just beats it, and when I think about it more, it probably will go low on the list. This episode has a lot of weird stuff in it, doesn't it? I feel like the entire episode leading up to one of the worst scenes in the entire show is the chase scene and Arya leading her to leaving Bravos because a girl is Arya Stark and I'm going home. Fucking cringe. Real bad. Real bad. And yeah, like you said, the Blackfish staying instead of just going with Brienne. It's just really annoying and lazy and dumb. Yeah, this episode is just a lot of nothing at times, and just really silly stuff. Really saved by Jaime, pretty much, and the performance in that tent, pretty much, and that's kind of it. And the scene with Brienne is really good as well. So thank God for that, because then it'd be much lower.
Yeah, River Run is kind of the saving
The
grace.
forced jokes of Tyrion was really bad as well.
Oh, yes. And Daenerys just returning and just no lines. My number 4 is The Winds of Winter. As you said before, this gets to the spot by the skin of its fucking teeth because the first 20 minutes is a spectacle, and then you also get the Ned Stark scene, which is great for his character. Because apart from that, it's, I think, pretty bad. Like, the whole thing at the twins, at the way that Walder Frey gets killed by Arya is just ridiculous. Cersei's reaction to Tommen could have been slightly better. Jaime teleporting is not ideal. Sam's jokes to the Maester at Old Town is really not fun. Despite the reveal of the library being cool. Yeah, and Benjen sort of just fucking off because of the wall. Like, I understand the reasoning, but character-wise, he didn't get much this season. As much as I love the match cut to Jon, the scene that happens after with him becoming King of the North, again, as I've explained, I don't like that they don't question the fact that he was part of the Night's Watch. The scene with Melisandre and Davos, I love Davos's, like, Liam Cunningham's performance in the scene is so guttural. but I still think that Jon's moral compass could have been a bit more like developed and interesting in the scene because of all the circumstances around it. I think the way he handles it is weirdly questionable and seems like it's just the showrunners trying to get her to leave so she can come back later, and it feels a bit arbitrary. The Littlefinger scene with Sansa is absolutely diabolically bad. The scene with Sansa and Jon is absolutely diabolically bad, one of the worst ever. And the Dawn scene, I guess Olenna makes some funny jokes, but again, it's just whatever. Sand snakes are there, I guess. Meereen is a train wreck with Daario Naharis being dumped. Daenerys making Tyrion her hand of the queen, I hate. Varys teleporting is ridiculous. Most of this episode is a train wreck, but it's saved by the spectacle of King's Landing and the Ned Stark scene, I think. By the skin of its teeth. And Raymond Javadi's amazing music throughout. It's one of his best episodes for score. Possibly the most stylish episode of Game of Thrones, but the script is a mess beyond belief. Your number 4. I think it's your number 4, or is it number 3?
No, my number 3,
Okay.
My number 3 is The Broken Man.
Snap.
Yeah, I feel like this is... In terms of just this entire episode, it's just kind of just average. It's very middle of the road. There's some decent stuff, and then there's some annoying stuff, like Jon being incompetent in discussions. But then you get good stuff, like the scene between the Blackfish and Jaime. And then you get bad scenes, like, I don't know, the ending of the episode being really... Arya being stabbed and then thrown jumps into dirty water, bleeding, and then isn't dead. And then the fish...
Bronn molesting Pod.
Yeah, just not needed. But then you get other decent scenes, like, Jaime slapping one of the Freys, which is quite funny.
You get the scene with Olenna Tyrell and Marjorie, which was kind of a red herring in the end. Didn't mean anything.
Well, then you get a scene with her and Cersei, which is really good.
That's real good. I don't know if you're the worst person I've seen. Obviously, the scene where Robert Glover rejects Jon Snow, he's really good in that scene. Yeah.
This time he isn't turning into an ood.
The theme where, like, the scene where Theon is kind of, like, Yara's encouraging him to be Theon again and not Reek in Volantis, even with the lesbian jokes. But of course, the big thing to talk about in this episode, right, is the Hound, the Brotherhood, and Brother Ray and his church group, right? The Hound's return and all that.
Gets a pre-title sequence.
Yeah, pre-title sequence. The explanation for why the Hound comes back is bullshit, and also the fact that he didn't hear them being slaughtered is also bullshit.
He was just far enough away where they all got slaughtered just before he got there.
Yeah.
Like, they had time to hang the guy on the tower they were building before he got there.
It's a very mixed episode, isn't it?
Oh boy, is it.
Right, well, my number 2 is Oathbreaker.
Snap!
Funnily enough, this is actually the one I remember the least about, but that's probably in its favour. This is the episode where Jon...
Sam is sick on a boat. That's one thing.
He is, yeah. Jon hangs Alistair Thorne, Otho Yarwick, Bowen Marsh, and Ollie, which is a massive scene. It's a very powerful thing. I think Kit Harington's performance when he wakes up from death is actually really impactful. It's the only real great... This is the only episode where we actually get a really good amount of time spent addressing his resurrection, I think.
Yeah. It's the last also episode with non-ponytail Jon.
Yeah. Also known as the last time Jon is good.
Yeah.
This is also the episode where we see Ned's fight with Arthur Dayne. The fight itself, in terms of choreography, is a little trash, but the actual dialogue and story behind it is interesting, with Gerald Hightower and Helen Reed. The only thing I don't like about it is Bran's dialogue, and the Three-Eyed Raven is just a bit flat. The establishment that Ned turns around as well is interesting, I will say. King's Landing has a small council scene, which is just... It's decent, I guess. It's not amazing, but it's fine. Qyburn develops his little birds, like he gives them all treats, and that helps him later on, so that's a good bit of development. Tommen visits the High Sparrow, and that's a really good scene. Yeah, in Meereen, this is one of the good scenes that Varys gets, where he talks to Vala, who is a prostitute for the Unsullied. Sorry, not for the Unsullied, for the Sons of the Harpy. And he threatens her, and that works out really well. Unfortunately, the small talk with Tyrion, Missandei, and Grey Worm is not good. Very bad stuff. And everything in Vaes Dothrak is also terrible, with all the dialogue with all the old women and Daenerys and the men. Braavos has a blind Arya being in training with the Waif and Jack and Hagar, and then eventually has her sight given back because she wins a fight, which is just weird. The Umbers give Rickon and Osha to the Boltons. My only real issue with this is that they don't accept like a lot of payment for it. They just give them for free, which I think is a bit ridiculous. So this episode does have issues, but it also has some okay moments. It's not like that good. It's just kind of consistently mid for the most part, and that's really why it's ended up here somehow. I'm actually kind of disappointed that this is second, because it's actually not a very good episode. It's very bad.
It's very average. Yeah. That's why I give it a 5.
Yep.
Yeah, just echoing what you're saying. It's just very mid Game of Thrones. It's just how to really sum it up. Like, the fight with Ned in the past isn't that great, but it's interesting to see, at the very least, I guess. Everything with Dany is just really strange. The scene with Varys is decent, I remember. I thought that was a decent scene. It felt like old Varys. The scene with Tyrion is just... ugh. Why? Why do we bother? Why do we bother anymore? But yeah, again, there's like decent scenes. All the stuff with like... some stuff in King's Landing is interesting. But then you got scenes like Arya is just really annoying and cringe, as it tends to be. Yeah. Just very average. Just average Game of Thrones.
Yes, and that means once again we have the same number one. But sadly, this time number one is actually not that good.
No, it's just above average.
Barely. Barely above average.
Barely.
And what is that, Callum?
Blood of my blood.
Snap.
Yeah. It has the least bad amount of episodes in it.
You mean scenes?
Oh, sorry, yeah, scenes. It's got the least amount of bad scenes in it.
If we talk about the bad stuff first, like the Benjen, like, saving Bran thing is very convenient. Sam stealing his dad's sword out of nowhere is rushed. And then, obviously, you get the fucking Daenerys Dothraki scene, which was so pointless.
Do you want to follow me like you have for 6 seasons? Yeah.
So I wasn't
We
keen
have
on
this
those
scene
three
every
things.
season.
I wasn't keen on those 3 things, but apart from that, actually, this was fine.
It was the best. This is the best part of Arya's entire run this season.
Yeah, because it's with all the stuff with Lady Crane and the woman and Richard E. Grant. Like, it's entertaining. Yeah.
Yeah.
Walder Frey at the Twins as well sets up River Run. That's entertaining. David Bradley's great. And King's Landing, you get some really good stuff in King's Landing with Tommen, the High Sparrow, and Marjorie. You get Jaime Lannister gets a lot of stuff to do here, confronting his son, as well as Mace Tyrell coming back. Jaime's stripped of the Kingsguard and gets sent to River Run. The scene with Cersei is interesting. King's Landing is actually really strong here. You get Horn Hill, which apart from the ending is also quite good as well when they meet Sam's family, with Randall Tarly especially being a highlight. As I said, the only issue is the end, the way it ends. It's just too rushed. But Gilly gets some of her best material in the show. And then, yeah, the Bran stuff is it is what it is, I guess. It's not even that good. Like, it's not even that good episode. It's kind of filler. But because it's written by Brian Cogman and not Dumb and Dumber, it's competent. That's all I got. It's the least exciting best episode we've had so far. And that kind of says a lot about season 6, doesn't it? That the best episode is like a 6 at best.
Oh, what a fall from grace.
Give your conclusion and rating out of 10 for season 6 of Game of Thrones.
What did I give 5? Just so I know.
I think you gave it a 4 or 4.5.
Well, this is the worst season so far, and somehow it's deemed one of the best. And, well, as we always say, people are entitled to be wrong, but it doesn't make them any less wrong. Yeah, this is really bad. This is a really disappointing season, and there's so much that it should have got right, and it just didn't. What a absolute wet fart of a season. So much shit was dumb, prolonged, spinning wheels, and just outright cringe. What a disappointment. So, Game of Thrones Season 6, the utter wet fart is going to get a 2.5 out of 10. I really disliked a lot of it.
A quarter of it is quality, is what you're saying.
Yeah. And even then, it's not even that great.
Yeah, so this is one of the most overrated seasons of television ever made. I genuinely am baffled by the hype behind this. Most of the characters are really poor. Hot take, season 5 is better by a pretty good distance, because it actually has some Game of Thrones in it. This doesn't. Yeah, the Wall is ruined, Winterfell is ruined, Meereen is terrible, Braavos is terrible, Dawn is terrible, the Iron Islands is terrible, River Run is good until the Blackfish decides to die, and King's Landing has some okay elements and some not okay elements, but it's just not enough. Yeah, so fucking hell. And the Hound's Return, what was that all about? Yes, there's elements of the season that look and sound pretty, but as I said earlier in the video, in a chicken casserole, the chicken's raw. No matter how many sides and ingredients and sauces you have, you can't eat it. And I can't eat season 6. I can't. Because even though the budget's increased and even though some of it looks cool, the story is poor. And yeah, not a fan. So I'm going to give it a 3 out of 10. So, Callum, your thoughts and anticipations for season 7?
Well, this is it now, pretty much. We're now into the seasons that I know I'm going to absolutely hate, because I know how one season ends, and then the season before builds up to that and is also not received well. I'm expecting more dumb, I'm expecting more characters to be ruined, I'm expecting more decisions to be made that I just absolutely question from the get-go.
What I can tease to you about season 7 is there's aspects of the show that haven't been ruined yet that we haven't thought of or spoken about. That will be ruined.
Wonderful.
Yeah. Because we've ruined the characters.
I cannot wait.
We've ruined the plot. So we've got the themes in the world left. And I can tell you that season 7 ruins one of those and season 8 ruins the other one. So yeah, great stuff, eh?
Ah, boy. I'm just...
What would you like to see from season 7, realistically speaking?
Some good writing.
But realistically speaking.
Not absolutely dogshit writing. Hopefully not that. Hopefully it's not the worst thing I've ever seen.
Would you like there to be some like hidden gem scenes then, at the very least?
That would be nice. That would be nice. It'd be nice to talk about stuff that was like good and have some things to praise.
I can tell you that from memory, there is at least one scene in season 7 that I absolutely love. So you got that to look forward to.
Yeah.
I guess What do you think about the fact that now we're going to 7 episodes instead of 10?
Oh boy, the show is not going to survive on logic much longer, is it? Boy, oh boy, that's going to be just insane.
I guess the big appeal for season 7 is that now Daenerys is in Westeros. So it's a change of... She's finally out of Meereen. She's finally fucking gone from Meereen. You've seen Dragonstone before. How do you feel about revisiting it?
Well, as I mentioned in the last reaction of Winds of Winter, I'm going to be curious of how much of it I remember, and if there's going to be stuff that I recognise.
Are you Ed Sheeran?
Oh God, I remember. As I said, I remember it watching it and then being very bored by it. So I wonder how much of things I'll recognise now and think about it during as a narrative, or if it's going to be just as boring as I thought it was.
I'll give you one more clue as well. There are parts of Westeros that we haven't visited in the show yet, and Dave and Dan basically used season 7 to give us a chance to see them at least once.
Yeah.
Because they know that season 8 is going to be very focused around the main parts of the show. So they use season 7 as an opportunity to explore a couple of areas we haven't seen yet before the show ends. So there is that, visually speaking, I guess, and scenery-wise. And... but yeah, 7 episodes, all in Westeros. And winter is here, as John and Sansa said. We're officially in winter. Let's think about what's going forward. So, Olenna Tyrell and Ilaria Sand are going to band together with Daenerys, as well as the Ironborn. Cersei has just blown up almost all the characters in King's Landing. So she's the queen and Jaime is there. Sam is in Old Town with the Maces. Jon is the king in the north at Winterfell with Sansa. Arya is at the Twins. She's just killed Walder Frey. Brienne and Podrick have left Riverrun. And Bran and Mira are about to... They're crossing the wall now. Well, they're about to cross the wall, I guess.
Yeah.
Have I forgotten anything? Oh, Euron Greyjoy. I forgot about Euron. Fucking hell.
Yep.
Ugh, he's gonna go fuck the queen.
Lovely. Best season ever.
I bid you adieu, a good night, and a goodbye. A bang.